What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if female Naruto made harem with Madara? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Naruto was born 6 years ago on this day October 10th to Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina, but the strongest known demon the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked the village not even a few hours after he was born. He was under the control of Madara's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan when he attacked. Minato the Yondaime Hokage and Konoha no Kiroi Senko summoned the boss toad Gamabunta so he could get close. The Yondaime had tried to find a way to stop the nearly all-powerful fox, but the only way was to seal him using the Shiki Fujin to summon the Shinigami who took the Kyuubi's soul and sealed within young Naruto's body. Naruto's mother Kushina survived his birth, but the loss of Minato was too much for the red-haired woman, and the fact that Minato never told her that he'd have to seal the Kyuubi inside him. She tried to kill Naruto, but Sarutobi, Kakashi, Rin, and Jiraiya intervened and stopped her attempt, and each of them were disgusted with what she attempted to do to her own son. Kushina had another child a few seconds after Naruto, a little girl who she named Kasumi, and they both lived in the Namikaze estate, and Kushina left Naruto at the mercy of the wolves. While Jiraiya was still the boy's godfather, he couldn't stay in the village due to the fact that he was in charge of the village's spy network but would always send Naruto presents and money for his birthday. Kakashi and Rin begged Hiruzen to let them adopt Naruto in honor of their sensei, but thanks to the civilian council that attempt was irrelevant, but Hiruzen did allow them to help Naruto learn basics like reading, math, speech, etc. And since Kakashi was an Anbu captain and Rin was the director of the hospital, they had very little time to visit, but they would on their days off. Thanks to the elders and civilian council, Naruto was dubbed as the Kyuubi's incarnate, and the civilians along with a few ninja wanted Naruto dead. The only ones that trusted in the Yondaime's skills were the clan heads, minus Fugaku, civilians and ninja that were close friends to Minato, and the Anbu. Right now a 6-year-old Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was being chased by a mob of civilians and a few ninja who were screaming, "Kill the demon!" and "Avenge the Yondaime and our loved ones." One of the Chunin threw a shuriken at Naruto and it embedded into the back of his leg. Said blonde cried out in pain but screamed even louder when a few more hit him in the back, thigh and shoulder. He collapsed into the ground and the mob started to cheer and slowly advanced towards the whimpering and crying boy who was trying to crawl away, but every time he moved the pain became worse. The Chunin that threw the shuriken had looks of glee on their face and were about to throw more until the sound of chirping echoed through the dark streets and the cry of Chidori was heard. That was when the sound of electricity piercing flesh was heard, and the Chunin that was in the middle had a lightning-induced hand shoved through his chest and out his back, and blood seeped down the Leaf Nin's chest. The other Chunin leapt back and watched in horror as one of their own was killed by an Anbu wearing a dog mask and had gravity-defying silver-gray hair. The sickening sound of a hand ripping out of flesh was heard, and the Chunin fell over and laid there motionlessly with his right arm coated and dripping with blood. Behind his mask, his left eye glowed red and 3 Tomo spun around rapidly. "If you fools value your lives, then I suggest you back away now." Inu ordered, releasing ki on the fools that would dare harm his sensei's son. That was when a female wearing a long-sleeved black shirt that hugged her upper body, and pants that hugged her lower body along with what looked like a white skirt that had a long slit on each side appeared. She had smooth shoulder-length brown hair with purple markings on her face and dark brown eyes and a tan skin complexion. She was Rin Kazama. She was currently kneeling down and healing Naruto's injuries. Said blonde looked up and smiled weakly with blood seeping out of his mouth and going down his lip. "Oh Oni-chan," Naruto weakly said, and said female looked down at him and smiled sadly. "Don't talk Naru-chan, everything will be fine," she said softly and started to slowly pull the shuriken out while said blonde winced in pain. That was when one of the Chunin stepped forward. "Step away from the demon. That creature doesn't deserve to live," he yelled while the mob cheered in approval. Kakashi on the other hand stood in between the bloodthirsty mob and Rin and Naruto while recreating the Chidori. Rin managed to successfully remove the shuriken, and when she heard that they wanted to kill her Otuto, she got up on her feet and performed a few hand seals. "Chakra no Mesu," she said, and her hands glowed and they sounded like buzz saws and got ready to protect Naruto. Unknown to the mob, a woman who was 5 feet 6 with long raven-colored hair that stopped to her waist that was a little spiky and also had red eyes with 3 tomo in them was watching the event with rage and disgust on her face. She wore a pink haori that had the pictures of phoenixes and fire on it, similar to the shunsui wears in Bleach, and also wore dark red samurai-like armor that was similar to the one Hashirama, Tobirama, and Madara wore, and a kunoichi outfit which consisted of a black kimono-styled blouse that had black sleeves with red flames licking the tips, and also wore a mesh shirt that showed a little of the cleavage from her D-cupped S that were perfectly fit, meaning they weren't too big or too small. She also wore a long skirt that had 2 long slits on the sides that stopped to her lower thigh and showed off her flawless legs. A mixture of red and back bandage wrap was wrapped around her ankles, the middle of her feet and around her shins, and wore black sandals that were similar to the ones the Senju brothers wore. All in the entire outfit accented her very goddess-like figure. She also wore crimson nail polish and red lipstick on her lower lip, and she also wore black eyeshadow over her eyes, like Kurenai does. Her Sharingan eyes glowed in the dark under the moonlight, and she clenched her fists to the point where they popped. She is Himegami Uchiha, fire goddess, the elder sister of Uchiha Madara and Izuna, the first wielder of the Mangekyo Sharingan, eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and the strongest and oldest Uchiha to live. Currently she would be pushing 100, but due to the fact that she gained the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan from Inari the fox god, she gained eternal life and youth. Not only that, but she was the only Uchiha whose eyes were actually blessed by the 3 goddesses Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu, and Susanoo, due to the fact that she never lusted for power, nor did she gain the 4th stage of the Sharingan by taking the life of a loved one. She did the exact opposite by having the desire to protect those precious to her and give her life for her loved ones. Madara, oh Tuto, you fool, look at what you've done. You have condemned an innocent child to a life of suffering for your own foolish ambitions, and worse, you took his family away from him. I should have finished you off after Hashirama-kun defeated you. Himegami though, and then she closed her eyes and opened them, revealing her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Her version was in the form of a 6-bladed windmill shuriken, and the inside had an atomic flower shape in them, and in the middle was a black pupil. Don't worry Naruto-kun, I'll take you in as my own and make up for what my foolish little brother did to you and your family. Himegami spoke and vanished in a flash of red lightning. There's no way we're gonna let you fools harm this boy. If you want him so badly, then you'll have to get past us. Kakashi said while Rin nods in agreement. The Chunin growled and pulled out a kunai, as did the others, while the mob pulled out their own weapons. Fine then. We'll kill you demon lovers and the Kyuubi brat. Let's get them. The Chunin yelled and the mob charged. Kakashi and Rin were inwardly cursing due to the fact that they were outnumbered. I have no choice but to use that, Kakashi said, and started to channel a lot of chakra into his eye in order to activate his Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu, said a calm and feminine voice. That was when a wall of black fire rose from the ground and appeared in between Kakashi, Rin, and Naruto. The Chunin that was charging full speed towards the 3 saw the flames and couldn't stop himself in time to avoid the black flames and fell right into it. The man fell down onto the ground screaming in agony and thrashing around as the flames devoured him and then reduced him to ashes afterwards. Both Rin's and Kakashi's as well as the mob's eyes widen when they see this. Kakashi-kun, did you? Rin asks, and the man shook his head while the Chidori dissipated. No Rin-chan, I didn't do this. Kakashi answered and wondered just who created the wall of black fire. That was when the black fire formed into the head of a dragon and roared, frightening the mob. It suddenly shot forward and engulfed half of the mob, who didn't even get the chance to cry out in pain and agony before being reduced to ashes. Kakashi, Rin, and Naruto were shocked and amazed at how the flames morphed into a dragon and reduced half of the mob into ashes. The flames suddenly dissipated. Himegami appeared with her dark blue chakra flaring around like wildfire. Kakashi and Rin were shivering at the amount of power she was emitting. Sweet Kami, I've never felt this much power emit from someone. It feels like it's on par with a Biju's. The copy nin thought, but his eyes widen when he sees her eyes. She's an Uchiha, he said, and Rin's eyes widened in surprise. That was when Himegami spoke up. You people are a disgrace to the village and the people who gave their lives so that this place can prosper. Now you will experience the pain this boy's had to endure for the next 48 hours. Tsukuyomi, she said, and that was when the mobsters each cried out in agony and collapsed on the ground crying and flailing around until they each had a blank stare on their faces and bodies remained motionless. Himegami then sighs and turns her attention towards Kakashi and Rin, who tense up. The female Uchiha smiles. "Don't worry, I can tell you two are no threat to the child, so I won't attack you," she says, and they relax their guard. She then turns her attention towards Naruto, who looked nervous under her gaze. She then walks over to him, kneels down, stretches her hand out and placed it on the boy's cheek, which made him freeze. Kakashi and Rin thought she did something to him. "It's all right, little one, I'm not going to hurt you," she said, and gently scooped the boy up in her arms and held him close to her warm body. At first Naruto was afraid that she would hurt him, but when he looked into her eyes he saw nothing but warmth and protection in them. They were the same like Rin's, Kakashi's, the Ichiraku's, and the Sandame's. Naruto accepted the embrace and fell into the warmth. "That's right, Naru-chan. You'll finally get the mother you always wanted," she said, but then frowned when she sensed a powerful chakra in their location. Speaking of mothers, Kakashi and Rin also sensed the chakra and turned their attention to a woman who appeared to be in her early 30s, had long red hair and violet slitted eyes, and wore a red and black outfit on her hourglass-like body and a black flak jacket. She was Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, the woman who abandoned her firstborn, and from the look in her eyes she was not happy. "Where do you think you're doing with my Sochi Uchiha?" Kushina spat the name out like it was poison in her mouth. A year back Kushina read the scroll that was given to her by Sarutobi after the Kyuubi attack and read it. It was written by her late husband Minato, and it explained everything about the seal and its effects on Naruto. After she had tried to kill Naruto, Kushina had been horrified at what she had tried to do and wanted to make it up to her firstborn in any way she could, but Sarutobi prevented her from doing that and had forbidden her from approaching Naruto until he deemed her sane enough to be trusted to go near him. Himegami on the other hand kept her cool, calm gaze on the red-haired woman. Kushina glared coldly at the Uchiha that held her child. "I will ask you again, Uchiha. Where are you going with my Sochi?" she demanded. Said female Uchiha smirks. "Simple. I'm giving the boy you abandoned a mother he rightfully deserves, and unfortunately for you, you aren't the one," she answered, which pissed Kushina off and said Redhead's fists ignited and violet-colored fire covered both of her arms. Apparently Kushina possessed one of the most powerful body-based bloodlines that ever existed. It was known as the Kanpeki Karada. Perfect body credit for this bloodline goes to Elemental Demon Sage. This bloodline gave the user certain abilities like the creation and manipulation of all the elements and sub-elements, and once mastered, the wielder can manipulate them at will. It also gives them absolute energy control, giving them the ability to have perfect manipulation of the body's multiple energies like chakra, reiki, and yokai. The user is also in a sense superhuman and a pseudo-immortal. The abilities were high-speed regeneration, increased muscle density and flexibility to give the body unmatched strength, speed, stamina, agility and flexibility, and the bone density is increased to the point that the bones, while still weighing the same as normal bones, become unbreakable and stronger than steel. They are also immune to all forms of poison, toxins, diseases, and their body's immune system can easily identify a new poison that enters the body, breaks it down and turns it into antibodies that can destroy any new substances that enters the body. "You are not taking him anywhere. I brought him into this world and I won't let a power-obsessed jutsu-stealing thief take him away from me," the redhead proclaimed. Himegami's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan glowed red and cracks started to slowly form in the ground. "Kushina, the Sandame Hokage, forbade you from going anywhere near Naruto-kun until he dubbed you ready," Rin yelled, making Kushina glare at her. "Shut up, Rin. I could care less what that old fool told me what to do," she yelled back, but that was when Kakashi appeared between Kushina and Himegami, who raised an eyebrow. "Kushina, you will back away from the boy and go back home. You are treading on dangerous grounds by disobeying a direct order from the leader of the shinobi forces of this village, and that action is close to being counted as treason. This is your final warning. Go home or you will be arrested," Kakashi stated and was slowly reaching for his ninjutsu. Kushina on the other hand was growling and the flames dancing around her arms expanded. "I'm taking my Sochi back and no one is gonna keep me from bringing him back. Hokage's orders be damned," she screamed, which caused Kakashi and Rin's eyes to widen in shock. Kakashi sighed heavily and his eyes were cold as ice. Then I have no other choice but to, he started to say until Himegami placed a hand on his should and he looked over to see her calm yet deadly expression. Please take the boy and step back to where your friend is, she said. Kakashi blinks for a while but then he nods and takes Naruto out of her arms. After that he moves over to Rin and was still confused. Why do you want us to? Kakashi started to ask but that was when he, Rin, and an unconscious Naruto were sucked into a dimensional void created by Himegami's M's. Kushina's eyes widened in shock when she saw that. What did you do? Where did you take my son? Kushina screamed, demanded while the longest living Uchiha brushed her hair back a little. I used a Jikukan ninjutsu, space-time technique, and sent them to a different dimension where they'll stay for now, she explained, which infuriated Kushina. You bitch, bring my son back here now, she roared while her eyes became stilled and her hair spiked up a little. Himegami on the other hand smirks. Why should I? You're no longer his legal since you tossed him aside like garbage and revoked your right to be his mother. Your loss is my gain because I intend to give Naru-chan a mother that'll love and support him and no one is gonna stop me, especially not you, she replied. Kushina on the other hand trembles in rage and then a dark smirk appears on her face. Then I'll just have to make you, she said and charges at her with violet fire trailing behind her. You can try, little girl, she said, and in a flash of silver light, a silver scythe called the Tenrai Tsukiki, Divine Mooncutter, appeared in her right hand and twirls it. You can try. That was when silver-white lightning channeled through the scythe and she got into a Bojutsu stance. Hokage Tower. Hiruzen was currently in his office looking through his orb at the fight between Kushina and the mysterious Uchiha, and Kushina wasn't faring well against her, but that wasn't the problem. He couldn't sense Kakashi's, Rin's, or Naruto's chakra anywhere. It was almost as if they didn't exist in this plane anymore. He was also pissed that Kushina had the nerve and gall to disobey his direct orders in staying away from Naruto. He knew she wanted him back after reading the scroll Minato left her, but he questioned her sanity and put a restraining order on her, fearing for his surrogate grandson's life, and there was also the fact that she was beyond obsessed with getting him back. He stood up and snapped his fingers, which caused 6 Anbu to appear kneeling before their leader. Let's go, he said, and they shunshin out of the office. Konoha Square. Almost half of the square was in ruins. Craters, scorch marks, and buildings that were either reduced to rubble or cut cleanly in half covered the current battleground, and smoke rose from a few of the buildings and craters. Another explosion occurred and Kushina was leaping out of the rising smoke and landed on the ground. Skidding back a little, her body was littered with cuts, bruises, and her clothes were torn a little. Her hair was messy and dirt as well as dried blood was on her outfit. Damn it, no matter what I do she's always one step ahead of me. How can an Uchiha be this strong? She said in frustration. That was when a calm and stoic Himegami appeared in front of Kushina, shocking her. Before she could react, Himegami kicked Kushina in the stomach and sent her flying towards a brick wall. Said redhead cried out in pain when she hit the wall hard and an imprint of her body and a crater formed around the wall. Kushina looked up at an unscathed Himegami with hate in her eyes and started to channel lightning chakra into her left arm and lift it up, but that was when the female Uchiha grabbed her wrist and instantly snapped it, making the technique disappear. Kushina gritted her teeth in pain but knew her broken wrist would heal, but then her eyes bugged out and she vomited out blood because Himegami punched her in the torso hard, and the sound of her ribs breaking and her internal organs swishing entered her ears. Kushina was coughing violently while Himegami lifted her arm over her head and kept her gaze on Kushina. You foolish little girl, did you honestly think that you could best me? She said in monotone. Kushina looked up at Himegami with hatred and rage in her eyes, and metal formed around her right hand and she formed it into a fist. A frustrated yell escaped from her mouth and she delivered a bone-shattering punch onto Himegami's jaw and made her head tilt back. Kushina smirks when she does this, but then her eyes widen in disbelief when she saw Himegami just stare at her with her head tilted back. How? That punch should have crushed your skull. Kushina stammers out while the female Uchiha leaned closer to her face. You don't get, do you? She says, and then punches her in the gut so hard that the crater Kushina formed grew bigger and the ground trembled. She does this 3 more times until the brick wall crumbles and Kushina stumbles on her knees and blood seeps out of her mouth. Himegami still had her grip on Kushina's arm and pulls her scythe off her back. She puts it in a reversed position and swings it upwards. Schling! A blood-curdling scream escapes from Kushina's mouth and blood sprays out of her stump of an arm and shoots out like a geyser. Kushina leaps away from Megami and clutches her stump of an arm while blood spilled from it and onto the ground. Harem wipes the blood off her side, tosses the arm aside, and turns around with her M's glowing. "The next thing that'll go will be your head," she said coldly while the silver edge glistened in the moonlight. She started to make her way towards Kushina but stopped when she heard the redhead laughing darkly. Her eyes widened a little when she saw a purple aura surround Kushina's body and the bleeding stopped. Her hair waved around wildly and she slowly stood up and placed her arm to the side. Kushina looked up and her slitted violet eyes were glowing and canines formed jutted out of her upper lip. She smiles and holds her stump out and it starts to shift and ripple. She let out a painful grunt as a new arm shot out of the stump she used to have. Himegami's eyes widened in surprise when she saw this. Kushina inspects her new arm and closes it into a fist while her old arm melted into the ground. "You can go ahead and cut my head off. I'll just grow it back like I did my arm. My Kekkei Genkei Kanpeki Karata practically makes me immortal. You can lop off my head, arms, legs, stab me in all of my vital organs, and even throw me into a pool of the strongest acid that exists. It still won't be enough to kill me. I have to say this though," she said as she cracked her neck. "You're the first person aside from my koi and parents to actually remove a limb and do this much damage to me." Himegami's surprised state recedes and she smirks. "I see. But even if you can't be killed under normal circumstances, there are other ways to an immortal like yourself. I should know since I had a few encounters with your clansmen and killed them," she said, making Kushina's eyes widen. "Even with your ancient bloodline you're still no match for me. Before you or your parent were a gleam in your ancestors' eyes, I have fought and lived through countless battles, slayed thousands of ninjas, and I was the only one to ever defeat the Shodem Hokage in combat," she said. Kushina's eyes widened in disbelief when she heard. Impossible. There's no way you can be alive. You'd have to be over 100. Kushina cried while Himegami smirks. "You are correct. I am over 100 and I am the strongest Uchiha to live in this world. Not even my little brothers Madara and Izuna could match me in skill even if they went all out. The same went with Hashirama and his brother Tobirama. I am Himegami Uchiha, the first Uchiha in history to gain every stage of the Sharingan," Himegami states, but then she sensed something and smiled. "So the little monkey is still alive?" she said with a small smile on her face. Kushina was confused at the statement and turned head into the direction Himegami's eyes were aimed at. Said Uzumaki's eyes widened when she saw Hiruzen Sarutobi, who gave her a stone-cold glare. Alongside of him were 6 Anbu, but then they vanished and landed onto the ground where Kushina and Himegami were, and the man wasn't happy. "Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, you've got a lot of nerve to go against me and my orders concerning you and your son," he said in a cold tone and also directed his ki on the former wife of Minato Namikaze. "Hiruzen may be old and one of the few cages to live past his prime, but he is still the strongest ninja in the village aside from his students Jiraiya and Tsunade. But Sarutobi, she wouldn't give me back my," she stammered out, but then her knees buckled when he released more ki on her. "Silence," he roared, which made her shut up. "I gave you a direct order not to go near Naruto until I deemed you sane enough to approach him, especially when you made an attempt to kill him when you found out Minato sealed the Kyuubi in him. You are no different from half of the fools in the village who can't tell the difference between the jailed and the jailer. Bear, hawk, wolf, and tiger, take Kushina to Ibiki for disobeying a direct order from her superior, and after that she is placed on house arrest until I revoke it," he said. A look of shock and anger appeared on Kushina's face. "Why, you can't do that," she screamed until Hiruzen's chakra flared and made the ground crack. "I am the Hokage Kushina, the ruler of this village and the shinobi that inhabit it. My word is law and what I say goes," he bellowed. "You should consider yourself lucky that I don't have you do time in prison for going against me, but I will not do that to Kasumi-chan and have her suffer for your stupidity, but this is your last and final warning. Stay away from Naruto or else you will regret it," he said harshly and snapped his fingers. Before Kushina knew it, she had chakra-suppressing cuffs on her wrists, and both Bear and Wolf grabbed her shoulders and shunshin away, as do Hawk and Tiger. Hiruzen turns his attention to Himegami, who was watching the event, and spoke up. "Now may I know who you are? why you damaged village property, and what you did with my two subordinates and Naruto. He asks while she smiles. Now is that any way to greet an old friend, little monkey? Himegami asks, which confuses Hiruzen until his eyes widen when she called him, little monkey. Only one person ever called me that, but she disappeared during the founding of the village and when Hashirama-sensei became the Shodem Hokage of the village. Himegami-sama? Is that really you? He asked, and his answer was her nodding and grinning at the stumped man. But how are you still alive and look the same when you left Konoha? He asks. Himegami's smile formed into a frown and she had a serious expression on her face. I'll explain in due time first. A swirling vortex appeared around her and Kakashi, Rin, and Naruto's sleeping form appeared and said Blonde was sleeping in Rin's arms. The two ninja blinked in confusion and looked around to see they were back in Konoha. What the? How? When? Where is? Kakashi said, scratching his head in confusion as he saw the destruction and then saw the Hokage and Himegami. Hokage-sama, where did we go and what happened to Kushina? The copy ninja asks because he was confused as hell, as was Rin. Hiruzen chuckles and tilts his hat up. Kushina is having a little chat with Ibiki and Anko, and afterwards she is on house arrest. The rest will be explained in my office, he says, and the man looks at Cat and Falcon. Get a construction crew to clean up this mess. He ordered, getting nods from them, and they shunshin away. After that, the five of them headed back to the Hokage Tower where Sarutobi started to explain everything to Himegami. Said female Uchiha, on the other hand, was not happy, and Hiruzen could tell from the disappointment and angry look on her face. I can't tell you how disappointed I am in you, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Your senseis would be displeased as well, she said while he sadly nodded. Kakashi and Rin were stumped, though, seeing her berate their leader like a child. I know, Megami-sama. Apparently my best wasn't good enough when it came to helping Naruto. I told Minato to let me perform the sealing so that he can look after his wife and children, but he was being too idealistic about protecting the village. I told him that while a person was smart, people were stupid, but sadly it was all in vain, and what made the matter worse was that those fools on the Civilian and Elder Council spread a false rumor about Naruto being the Kyuubi's reincarnate. I was too late to explain the sealing to them, and those who told the people of the village about Naruto's condition remain unanimous. The only ones that are backing me are the clan heads, he explained while she frowned. So apparently the village that my best friends created with their own blood, sweat and tears is nothing more than a shell of its former self. What the hell are you doing, letting their legacy be reduced to crap, Hiruzen Sarutobi? She shouted as she focused a little of her ki on the man. You are the Hokage. This is a ninja village, not a damn democracy. Your word is law. Those civilians and elders that are on the council should have no form of power over you whatsoever, and you shouldn't be allowing a mob of blind and short-minded fools attack an innocent child in your streets. This is not what Hashirama-kun and Tobirama-kun created. They would never allow any child, especially a Jinchuriki, be treated like this, nor would they let the council be in control of things they have no say in. Wake the hell up and face reality, you stupid monkey, or I swear I'll make that beating I gave you when you were a snot-nosed gaki look like child's play. She yelled while Rin and Kakashi's jaws dropped. This Uchiha was around when the Sandame was a kid, meaning she was around during the founding of the village, and they wondered just how was she capable of looking so young yet being over 100 years old. She's right. I let my trust in the village blind my judgment. What have I been doing with my sensei's legacy? They would be ashamed of me. He looked back up at Himegami with a different expression on his face, and she was smiling. His eyes burned brighter than they did before, and his facial appearance was not that of a weak old man. It was the appearance of a man who has fought, killed, and strike fear into the hearts of even the most dangerous shinobi. This was the man who fought in all 3 wars and lived. Glad to finally have you back, Hiruzen. Himegami thought. Thank you, Megami-sama. The fire that dwindled in my eyes has reawakened, he said in a strong and authorities tone. And I believe it's time for me to clean house and show these people why I was dubbed as the Shinobi no Kami, he says, and he was gonna make sure that no one usurped his authority ever again. Naruto woke up only to find himself in a dark and dank sewer. What the? Where am I? Naruto asks himself and looks around. We're in your mindscape, kid, said a deep and powerful voice which made Naruto look around frantically. Look behind you. The voice said again. Naruto turned his head only for his eyes to bug out when he found himself in front of a cage and behind it was a pair of massive red slitted eyes staring down at him. The shadows moved away from the eyes and revealed the form of a large fox with 9 tails swaying behind him. "Hello kid, nice to see you aren't dead yet, because it would be a real problem if you did die," Kyuubi said while Naruto just stared at him, making the fox raise an eyebrow. "Hey kid, are you okay?" Naruto managed to snap out of his stupor and rub the back of his head nervously. "Hey, sorry, it's not every day you meet a giant fox in your mindscape," Naruto replied, which made the fox's eyes widen. "So you know who I am and why I'm sealed in you?" Kyuubi asks and Naruto nods. "Considering the fact that I was born on the day you attacked the village and the fact that the Baka villagers call me Fox Brat, Demon, and Monster, how could I not realize it?" Naruto said while Kyuubi remained silent. "I may be 6 years old but I'm not an idiot," he deadpanned, which made the fox chuckle. "You truly are an enigma kid," Kyuubi states. Naruto rubs the back of his head and looks the other directions. "That's what Inu Iniki and Rinne-chan said. So do you have a smaller form?" Naruto asks Kyuubi, who smirks. His entire body glows red and it slowly shrinks until it's in the form of a full-grown adult male. When the glow died down, standing before Naruto was a man who appeared to be 5 feet 11. He is a fairly tall, lean-built person with peach skin, reddish-brown eyes, and orange spiky shoulder-length spiky hair. His outfit consisted of a black ankle-length black coat, or shikakusho, with red lining that is closed at his chest, and then left to flare out into ragged ends. His right arm was sleeveless and wore a black glove while his left arm had a black sleeve and also wore a pair of black hamaka pants with tabi socks and sandals, Ichigo's Bankai form after he left the Dongai world. Naruto looked at the man with awe in his voice and couldn't help but admire his appearance, especially the color of his hair. Kyuubi raised an eyebrow at the boy's facial appearance. "Is there something on my face, kid?" he asks while Naruto shook his head. "Wow, you have orange hair," he said, which caused Kyuubi's to eye him oddly. "And your point?" "I was born with orange hair," he states, and his answer was Naruto shrugging. "Oh, nothing. I think it looks cool, plus in case you haven't noticed, my hair is bright yellow like my old man's," he said. Kyuubi smiled at the praise since when he was once human his hair caused him a lot of issues, but that was when he almost fell off his feet but caught himself. "Whoa, hold on, you know that your dad is the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze?" he asked while Naruto nods. "Well yeah, I mean I look just like him minus the whisker marks." "You'd have to be a total idiot to not notice it, Kyuubi," Naruto states while Kyuubi rubs the back of his head. "You got a point there, and don't call me Kyuubi kid. The name's Ichigo Kurosaki," Ichigo states. "Oh well then Ichigo, may I ask why did you attack Konoha 6 years ago?" the young blonde asks while Ichigo scowls at the memory. "It wasn't my intention to attack your home kid. Some teme in a spiral mask and a weird-looking eye placed some kind of illusion on me and made do it. But before I explain the rest, let me tell you about my past life before I became a Kyuubi," he says. Council chamber. Every member of the council was now sitting in the chamber and were wondering why the Sandaime had called him. On the shinobi side were the clan heads Fugaku Uchiha, Hiyashi Hyuga, Shikaku Nara, Inoichi Yamanaka, Shuza Akamichi, Shibi Aburame, and Sume Inazuka, and sitting beside her was Kuromaru. The 3 elders were Danzo Shimura, Kaharu Utatane, and Homura Mitokado, while the rest consisted of civilians and a part of them was a pink-haired woman named Akemi Haruno. Unlike the rest of the civilians, she honored her former friend's dying wish and saw Naruto as a hero and knew he was Minato's son. When she found out about what Kushina tried to do to her son, she was appalled. The 3 elders and other civilian members were responsible for the way Naruto's current life was and dubbed him as the Kyuubi's reincarnate, and either wanted him to become a weapon or removed from this plane of existence since he was a threat to Konoha. The clan heads on the other hand were on Naruto's side since he was the one keeping them from facing absolute destruction, and the fact that they knew how skilled Minato was in Fuinjutsu since he did create one that helped them end the last war, and they each knew that Naruto was Minato's and Kushina's son, but they were disgusted that Kushina abandoned him thinking he was the demon fox. While they all pondered on this, the door opened and Hiruzen entered the room with an expression that radiated power and authority. Following behind him were several Anbu that were in full battle gear and looked as if they were preparing to go on a dangerous high-ranking mission and were now walking around the confused counselors until they surrounded the confused members and stood around them not making a sound. Hiruzen approached his seat and the Anbu wearing the tiger mask salutes his leader, who smiles and nods, allowing his subordinate to stand at ease. After he sat down, Danzo decided to speak up. "Sarutobi, what is going on? Why are there fully equipped Anbu in the chamber?" he demanded, but Hiruzen turns and sends an icy gaze towards the old war hawk, which makes the man's visible eyes widen a little and cringe a little. "Let's get one thing straight here, Danzo. You will refer to me as Hokage-sama, and second of all, you don't question my authority. I am the leader of this village and you will show me some respect," he said in a strong tone and aims his attention at the others. "The same goes for the rest of you. You may be members of this council, but I can easily remove you from your position of power and replace you with someone more level-headed." The elders, civilians were surprised at his response to Danzo, and the clan heads and Akemi were amazed to see this change in Sarutobi and were wondering what made this change. Sume, on the other hand, was looking around and saw Kushina wasn't in the meeting. "Hokage-sama." Hiruzen turns his gaze over to the Inuzuka matriarch. "Yes, Sume, what is it? If I may ask, why isn't Kushina in the chambers?" she asks, while the man smiled a smile that made her cringe inwardly. Kushina is currently under Ibiki's care for disobeying a direct order from her superior, namely me, and is also on house arrest, so she won't be attending this meeting. Now then, I called this meeting to discuss a few things concerning a certain member who has been blamed for something he had no say in, as well as certain members of this council usurping my authority, and you will not speak out of turn or my Anbu here will escort you out of this chamber. Do you understand me?" he said, getting a nod from the clan heads and one civilian, but then set his gaze on the elders and the rest of the civilians. That was when the leader of the Anbu spoke up at the other council members. "The Hokage asked you a question, now you either respond to your leader or else." He emphasized else, and some of the members shot ki directly at the resisting elders and civilians, who shakily nod their heads while Hiruzen smirked. "Thank you, Tora. Now then, as I was saying earlier, certain members in this council have been going against not just me and my authority, but the laws me, my predecessors, and late successor have created since the founding of this village. I consider the actions that have been committed as treason, and I will not tolerate such things in my village. One example would be the condition of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," he said, and saw the civilians and elders growl and were about to speak out, but when they felt the sharp ends of the kunai the Anbu had pointed to their backs, they shut it up. Hiruzen then locks his hands together, and rests his chin on them and scans the room like a predator does when it searches for the weakest and most vulnerable prey. "I already have a list of names on the ones who have broken my law concerning Naruto, and that this group is responsible for spreading false rumors about him being the reincarnation of Kyuubi," he said, and noticed a few of the civilians sweat a little and tremble slightly, and that the three elders were looking nervous, and he smirked inwardly. "Not only that, but a certain someone in this group has been keeping an organization that I disbanded active, and certain members have been supporting it secretly." He then aimed his glare at Kaharu, Homura, and Danzo. "Care to explain yourselves, Kaharu, Homura, Danzo? You three as well as the civilians have been nothing but a thorn in my side since I reinstated myself," he said as he slowly stood up and focused ki on them. "I will not tolerate your actions, and as of now I am disbanding the Elder Council and removing the Civilian Council until further notice. Akemi, since you are in charge of the Civilian Council, you may still retain your seat and pick new members to join," he said, getting a smile and nod from the woman, and that was when the elders and civilians rose to their seats yelling he couldn't do that and he was out of line. They instantly fell on their knees when ki flooded the entire room, but the clan heads and Akemi weren't affected. "Anbu, takes these civilians out of my tower and lock them up and prepare them for their execution tomorrow morning. They will be a prime example for those who want to go against my authority." He ordered the Anbu grabbed the civilians and Shunshin out of the room with their prisoners, while Hiruzen set his gaze on his former teammates and Danzo. "As for you three, for keeping a disbanded group active and performing illegal acts that are considered treason, I sentence you both to death immediately," he said, which made their eyes widen. "Think again, you old fool." "Root," Danzo cried out, waiting for his soldiers to appear and deal with his rival, but they didn't. The smile on Sarutobi's face made the man pale. Oh, I don't think your soldiers will be helping you this time, Danzo, right Himegami? Sarutobi said, which confused the clan heads and elders until a pair of red eyes with 3 tomos and a black pupil appeared from the shadow in the wall. Right Hiruzen, she said in a cold tone and stepped out of the shadows. Their eyes widened when they saw this woman step forward and settle her gaze on the elders. And as you requested, I destroyed Danzo's little group. She answered. Who are you? Homura asks. Himegami said nothing and activated her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu. A torrent of black flames engulfed Kaharu, Homura and Danzo, and their blood-curdling screams echoed throughout the room until they were no more and were reduced to ashes. Everyone, especially Fugaku's, eyes widened when they saw this, and Himegami dissipates the flames, leaving 3 scorch marks on the floor. Good riddance, she said, and turned her attention to the clan heads who were stumped at what they saw. Himegami raised an eyebrow and had a look of amazement on her face. What, is there something on my face? She asks. Fugaku took a good look at Himegami and his eyes almost bulge out of their sockets. Why, you're unbelievable? You're Himegami Uchiha. The first Uchiha in history to ever gain the and master every form of the Sharingan. He said, which caused every clan head including Shikaku to look at the man in shock and disbelief. Sarutobi on the other hand raised an eyebrow. So you know of your ancestor Fugaku? The professor asks and gets a questioning look from the man. But of course, Himegami-sama is a legend in our clan. One even greater than Madara Uchiha. She was not just the first one to master every form of our clan's dujutsu, but she also possessed the Enten element or blaze release, which is the combination of fire and lightning. Not only that, but her skills in the Kaden element were unrivaled, since she could manipulate it the same way the Nidame could with water. She was also the only one who could take on the Shodai and Nidame at the same time back during the clan wars. There is not an Uchiha alive who comes close to matching her skills. He explained, which caused every member in the room's eyes to bug out of their sockets. Himegami on the other hand had a smirk on her face. Glad to see my former clan keeps up with their history, she replied, which made the current clan head raise an eyebrow. What do you mean by that, Himegami-sama? He asked while she set her gaze on him. During the creation of the village after my younger brother Madara made an attempt to try and gain the title of Shodem, believing that Hashirama would force our clan to submit under the Senju clan's rule, and wanted to have our clan rebel against the idea, but sadly they went against him and he left, leaving the clan leaderless. I offered to take his place and help lead them, but they didn't like the eldest didn't like the idea of being told what to do by a female. She said with a scowl on her face, which made Sume and Akemi growl, and muttering something about males being East pigs, which made every male in the chamber sweat drop. But that's not what pissed me off. They found out that my final level of the Sharingan was hereditary and would be passed down onto any children I had, so they demanded that I be turned into a breeding factory in order to make the clan stronger. She said while her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan glowed red and a dark smile appeared on her face. And for those who liked the idea were killed by me and sent to their family members in pieces. She finished, which made everyone in the room pale. So after that little event I decided to exile myself from the clan and leave the village to see what the world looked like. Shikaku could already tell that this female was dangerous, and she was even scarier than his wife Yoshino, Sume, and Tsunade. Who was he kidding? Those 3 got nothing on her. Hey, whoever said hell hath no fury like a woman scorned must have been an expert or victim in the saying. The shadow user muttered, getting nods from his comrades and a smirk from Sume. Anyhow, I don't plan on rejoining the clan Fugaku-san, so don't bother asking. She states, getting a nod from the man. It's a shame, but I understand, Himegami-sama. Fugaku replied, getting a smile from the female Uchiha. Now then, Hiruzen, I would like to ask a favor from you. She said, getting the attention of the veteran of 3 wars. It's concerning Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I would like to adopt him. She states, making the man's eyes bug out, and so did the others. Each of them made attempts to adopt the boy, but the elders and civilians made laws that kept them from doing the act. Sarutobi regained his composure and sighed sadly. As much as I would like to, I can't, due to the fact that former members in the council made a law that prevented anyone inside the village from adopting Naruto. He answered, and that was when Himegami and a sly smirk on her face. True, but did their law include anyone that lived outside the village? She asked. Hiruzen stared at her for a few minutes, but then something ticked inside his head and a huge grin slowly formed on his face. "Loopholes, you gotta love 'em," she said, brushing her hair back. "Also, when I adopt Naruto I plan on doing a blood ritual that'll make him my biological son," she states, which made Hiruzen raise an eyebrow in confusion. "The ritual requires me to use my blood and merge it with the person of my choosing, and if my blood accepts the person to be a biological member of my family, then he'll not gain my genes, but he'll also gain my bloodline," she explained. Sarutobi took the info in and spoke up. "Very well then, but the problem now would be your lodging," he stated, and that was when Fugaku spoke up. "Why not give them the Senju compound that's behind the Hokage mountain?" Ever since Tsunade-san left the village, the place was nothing more than a historical monument, and it's the only compound available at the moment, the clan head stated. Hiruzen and the others agreed to this, and the leader spoke up once again. "That'll definitely work, don't you agree, Himegami?" The female Uchiha smiled and nodded. "Yes, that's an excellent idea," she says. After Hiruzen dismissed the clan heads, he led Himegami back to her office where Kakashi and Rin were watching a sleeping Naruto. Said blonde was currently resting his head on Rin's lap while Rin gently stroked his hair with her hand. That was when Naruto stirred a little in his sleep and opened his eyes and saw Rin, Inu, Hiruzen, and the same woman who comforted him in the office. "Nei-chan," Naruto said quietly, which got Rin's attention. "Hey Naru-chan, did you enjoy your nap?" she asked warmly and got a nod from the blonde, who slowly sat up and turned his attention to Himegami. "You're the one who saved me from those people earlier." "Thank you," he said gratefully, and she smiled warmly at the boy. "You're welcome, Naruto-kun," she replied until she saw the sad look on his face. "So what's gonna happen to me now? I don't want to go back to that orphanage since the people there treat me like crap and hardly ever feed me, and the apartment you gave me, Saruoji, was burned down," he said sadly, which caused Rin's and Kakashi's eyes to widen in shock and anger, while Hiruzen was seething inwardly and made a note to have a chat with the matron of the orphanage. Himegami's eyes flashed red for a few seconds and her right hand started to twitch dangerously, but she calmed herself down. "No need to worry, Naruto-kun, because you're gonna be adopted," he said, which made the blonde boy's eyes widen. "By who? Is it Inu Iniki and Nei-chan?" he asks, and the two shook their heads. "Actually, I will be adopting you, Naruto-kun," Himegami said, and the boy turned his attention to her. "My full name is Himegami Uchiha, but I'm an exiled member of the clan, so I have no ties with the current clan," she explained, and Naruto's eyes started to become moist. "So you're gonna be my new Ka-san?" he asked with hope and happiness in his voice. Said Uchiha smiles, kneels down and holds her arms out. That was when Naruto ran into her arms and started to cry happily on her shoulders, while said Uchiha stood up with the boy in her arms and gently rubbed his back. Inu aka Kakashi was smiling behind his mask, and Rin was wiping away some tears from her eyes, happy that her little brother finally had a mother who would love him unconditionally, unlike Kushina. Sarutobi was happy for his surrogate grandson also. After the little scene, Himegami spoke up. "Now then, before I adopt you I have to make you an official blood member first," she said, which confused Naruto for a while until Hiruzen spoke up. What she meant, Naruto, was that you'll have to go through a blood ritual in order for her to make you her biological son. What happens is that if her blood accepts you, you'll gain not just her bloodline, but you'll also gain a few traits during the procedure, he explained, and got an O from the boy. "So what do you say, Naruto-kun? Do you want to be my Sochi by blood?" she asks kindly while he thought about it. "If you're worried about those idiot villagers that still hold some form of resentment towards you, then don't worry. I'll destroy anyone that tries to harm a single hair on your head, and not only that, but I'll train you in the ninja arts and make you strong enough to deal with anyone who stands in your way." "Okay, I'll do it, Ka-san," Naruto said with a smile, but then frowned. "But what about her bloodline?" Naruto asked, which made Himegami frown a little as well. Regretfully, that woman's Kekkei Genkei is permanently hereditary, but when your genes alter, you'll more than likely be distant relatives, and I mean distant. She quotes, "The same would go with your father's genes," she explained, and Naruto nods. "Now then, let's get you ready for the ritual. You'll feel funny at first, but it's only temporary," she assured her soon-to-be son. Sealing chambers. Hiruzen, Kakashi, and Rin were in the room watching as Himegami placed red seals that she made with her blood around the room and on a shirtless Naruto who was laying on his back. After she was done, she took a notice at the Shiki Fuin seal that appeared on Naruto's torso and glowed red. She raised an eye at this and looked down at her nervous son. Naruto-kun, before I begin I have to do something first, so relax for a while, she said, and activated her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which started to spin rapidly. Naruto's eyes turned glassy for a while and the seal on his stomach turned even redder. She then does a ram seal and says Fuin, similar to how Madara extracts Kyuubi from Kushina. The seal started to slowly melt away while reddish-orange bubbling chakra rose out of the seal, which made Hiruzen's, Kakashi's and Rin's eyes widen and were gonna stop her until the chakra landed right next to Himegami and escaped from Naruto's body until it was no more and started to take on the form of a full-grown man, revealing a man with dark spiky and mop-like shoulder-length orange hair wearing all black outfit. Said man was kneeling down and rose to his feet, shaking his head. Man, what a rush, he mumbled, and saw the three ninjas staring at him with owl-like eyes. Ichigo blinked a few times and rubbed the back of his head. Hey, how's it going? He asks while Kakashi pointed at him with a trembling finger. K Kyuubi? He asked while Ichigo looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Yeah, that's my title, but call me Ichigo, and no, I'm not gonna raise this village to the ground unless you give me a reason to, he said in a serious tone. The kid told me about what his life was like since I was sealed in him by his old man, and I have to say half of the people in this village are idiots, especially that bitch of a mother he had. Don't be too surprised if she ends up in the hospital by mysterious circumstances, he said, and turned his attention to Himegami, and felt his face heat up. Whoa, she's gorgeous. And I thought Yoruichi was hot, he thought, and looked away, and for some reason found the ceiling interesting while Himegami blushed a little when he stared at her, but it wasn't one full of lust or perverted like most men. She shook the thoughts off when she heard Naruto groan a little. Alright then, now to perform the ritual, she said, and pulled a kunai out. After that, she used the sharp end and cut it across her palm, making blood seep out of it. Next she took Naruto's hand and used the same kunai to cut his palm open while Naruto bit his lip from the sharp sting. She placed her bleeding palm over his, squeezed it, and the blood dripped from her hand and onto his. Afterwards she started to perform a long chain of seals, and the seals on the ground and around Naruto's body started to glow red. After doing around 99 seals, she stopped at the 100th one, which is a ram seal. Naruto's eyes widened and felt a weird sensation go through his body while the seals started to snake up his body and seep into Naruto's body. This went on for at least 10 minutes and the seals suddenly died down and Naruto's body changed a little, having a light tan complexion. His blonde hair was a little darker, with it being shoulder length and his bangs being jaw length, like Minato's was when he was younger. He also had some black streaks in his hair, making him an Uchiha. He also had a pair of canines jutting from his upper lip and his whisker marks were gone. Once the ritual was complete, she lets out a sigh of relief and brushes a strand of hair back. Naruto slowly opened his eyes, which were cerulean blue and had slitted pupils, and groaned. Himegami helped him up and set her now biological son on her lap. How do you feel, Sochi? She asked. I feel funny, but other than that I'm okay. Wait, did you say Sochi? He asked, and she nodded. So the ritual worked and now you're my Kasan? Tears formed in his eyes while she smiled lovingly at him and once again nodded, which resulted in Naruto once again hugging her and crying tears of joy. Himegami wrapped her arms around him and kissed him on the top of his head, and she too was happy that she got to have a son to love and support. Ichigo smiled at the sight since it reminded him of when he was with his mother. I'm happy for you, kid. I don't know how, but I'm gonna make it up to you for ruining your life for the last 6 years, and I swear the next time I see that bastard Madara I'm gonna rip his head from his shoulders, he thought, with his eyes flashing red for a few seconds. After the ritual, Himegami gave Naruto some new clothes and Sarutobi gave her the official adoption papers, and Ichigo explained to Hiruzen why he attacked Konoha and that he used to be a soul reaper for the Shinigami King and defeated a rogue by the name of Aizen but lost his powers in the process, but the backlash of the fight transformed him into a kitsune with 9 tails, thus dunning him as the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Next, Hiruzen escorted the three to the old Senju compound that was in top condition. The reason why is that Hiruzen always had it cleaned twice a month, and thanks to the repair seals, security seals, and barrier that kept intruders out, it remained like it was during the formation of the village. Once they got settled in, Naruto was sound asleep in his new bed. Ichigo was currently sitting on the wooden floor outside the compound looking up at the moon until the slid door opened up and Himegami walked out with 2 cups of green tea on a platter. She also wore a silky red robe that hugged her body and on it were white flowers. "Hey Ichigo," Himegami said, getting his attention, and it took all his willpower not to pass out from a nosebleed he was getting but managed to shake it off. "Oh hey Himegami-san," he said while she sat down next to him and set the tea down. "Just call me Himegami, I'm not the type to deal with suffixes," she assured and got a nod from him. She handed him one of the cups of tea which he took and drank, and she did the same. Afterwards they each talked about they did in the past, and Himegami was amazed that Ichigo was once human who then became a Shinigami and saved the mortal and spirit realm from a rogue named Aizen. Ichigo was also impressed with how Himegami was over 100 but still looked so young thanks to her final form of the Sharingan as well as being blessed by 3 goddesses. What amazed him even more was that during her travels she also faced demons and monsters that make the hollows Ichigo faced look harmless minus the Arrancar and Vasto Lord Ichigo fought in his life. They also joked around a little, especially when Ichigo told her about how hesitant he used to be around the opposite and mostly blamed his former sensei Yoruichi for it. After talking for a while, Ichigo took one of the guest rooms while Himegami took the master bedroom that she redecorated. All in all, Naruto gained a family. Even though they were currently small, it would soon grow. Morning came and the sun shined down on Naruto's face and said Blonde groaned and shifted his body away from it and snored lightly. Afterwards he slowly opened his eyes only to see his room brighten up from the sunlight. He sat up, rubbed his eyes and yawned, stretching his arms out and looked around. Naruto smiled due to the fact that his room was twice as big as his apartment since it had a whole bathroom. For the first time in his life Naruto was actually happy because he finally had what he always wanted, a family. That was when the scent of food being cooked entered his nose and he made his way out the room and towards the kitchen. When he entered the room, he saw his new mother in the kitchen and was humming and cooking breakfast. Naruto walked over to his mother and gently grabbed her robe, getting her attention. Himegami turned her head only to look down and see her son smiling up at her while she smiled down at him. "Good morning Ka-san," Naruto said while she knelt down and gave him a motherly hug and kissed him on the forehead. "Good morning Sochi. Did you sleep well?" she asks and got a happy nod from Naruto. "Good. Now then go on ahead and get yourself cleaned up for breakfast." "Okay, but where is Ichigo?" Naruto asked, looking around for the most powerful of the Biju. "He's currently getting us some things for the compound as well as some new clothes for you. He should be back soon," she explained, getting a nod from Naruto. "Okay then, say Ka-san," Naruto said while she continued to cook breakfast. "Yes Sochi?" Himegami asked her son. "I was wondering, since I won't be going to the ninja academy until I'm 8, can I start my reigning as a ninja now?" he asked while she thought about it. "I don't see why not. The other clan heads are starting their children's training as shinobi, so yes, but we'll start off with the basics, okay?" she asked and got a happy nod from Naruto. "Now before we start later on today Naruto-kun, I want you to focus your eyesight on me, okay?" she asks. Naruto blinked in confusion but nods and does that. After a few seconds have passed, Naruto's eyes changed instantly into a fully matured Sharingan with 3 tomo around the pupils. "Wow Ka-san, I can see your chakra." In case you're wondering, Kakashi and Rin also taught Naruto about an energy shinobi used called chakra, he said while she had a look of surprise on her face. "Wow, you already have a fully matured Sharingan. You must have gained it during the ritual, and thanks to your Kekkei Genkei Kanpeki Karata you've gained the first level of the Sharingan. While you learn the basics I'm gonna teach you how to use it properly and how to fight without it," she stated. "I knew my blood was strong, but to give him a fully matured Sharingan at his age is incredible. I swear Naruto, I'll mold you into a strong shinobi like your father was. You'll not only surpass the other 4 Hokages but you'll even surpass me and my brothers one day," she thought while Naruto deactivated his eyes and headed back to his room to get clean and dressed. 2 years later. 2 years have passed since Naruto was adopted by Himegami and made her biological son, and when Ichigo joined the family. Said former Shinigami was a great person to get along with and became a surrogate father to Naruto. For the last 2 years Himegami taught Naruto the steps in using the Sharingan properly and not rely on it, and even trained him in the basics like how to properly throw projectile weapons like kunai, shuriken, and senbon, and also trained him in knowing the anatomy of the human body and how to set traps and use his surroundings to his advantage. Before she started to teach him jutsu, she had him do a couple of chakra control exercises in order for him to know how to use the proper amount of chakra in a technique. So far he knew the tree climbing, advanced tree climbing, water walking, and advanced water walking, swimming exercises. Afterwards she taught him how to perform the 12 hand seals and which ones are better suited for certain elemental jutsu. Thanks to his Kanpeki Karata, perfect body, bloodline, he had an affinity for all the main elements and sub-elements including rare ones. She also started to teach him the basics to ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu, and also started to train him in using different weapon varieties so that way he'd have an advantage over his enemies, and also started to train him in using one-handed seals. Ichigo also started to train him in the basics of kenjutsu as well as the martial arts he learned in his past life. Right now 8-year-old Naruto was watching Himegami performing a fire jutsu known as the Gokyaku no Jutsu near a large lake that was located behind the compound. Naruto currently had shoulder-length hair with black streaks on the bangs, and he also had a long spiky ponytail that stopped to his upper back. He was wearing a red short-sleeve shirt with black flames on the hem of the shirt as well as the sleeves, and also had the leaf symbol and the kanji fire on the back of it. He also wore black cargo shorts that stopped below his knees and black sandals, and appeared to be very fit for a kid his age. He watched his mother end the jutsu and motioned for him to come forward, which he did. She made sure that he was capable of using hand seals as well as one-handed seals at the level of a chunin before teaching him any elemental jutsu. Once he accomplished that thanks to his photographic memory, she started teaching him fire jutsu. Now it's your turn to give it a shot, Sochi, and remember to keep the power, speed, control and amount of chakra in balance. She instructed and got a nod from him. Hi Ka-san, Naruto said and turned his attention towards the lake. He started to perform a series of hand seals, stops at the tiger seal, and inhales air into his lungs. Kaden Gokyaku no Jutsu. He then exhales and released a torrent of fire across the lake. Himegami used her Sharingan in order to get a good inspection of the jutsu and smiles. Naruto ends the jutsu, lets out a sigh, and turns around to see his mother smiling. Excellent job Naruto-kun, you managed to keep the jutsu balanced. She said while he eyes smiled at the praise she gave him and then spoke. Say Ka-san, since you said your eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is hereditary, would it be possible for me to gain it? Naruto asked Himegami. It is a possibility Naruto-kun, but you'll probably gain your version once your Sharingan has reached its limit and it'll evolve to the final stage, thus you won't have to worry about any of the side effects except for chakra depletion. She said while Naruto nods. So are you excited to be entering the academy tomorrow? Naruto smirks and nods. Hi, I'm ready since you and Ichigo helped me get a head start. Hopefully I can make some more friends there, and I'm pretty sure Hinata-chan will be in the academy too, but I think she's a little nervous. He stated while Himegami giggles and ruffles his hair. And I know you'll protect her from the bullies, right? She asked while he scoffs. Of course I will. That's what a friend does, right? So when are you gonna settle down with Ichigo and give me a sibling? He asked humorously, making Himegami blush a little. What are you talking about? She asked, which only made Naruto's smirk grow. Ka-san, I may be 8, but I'm very mature for my age. I've seen how you two stare at each other when you don't think no one's looking and you like to spend a lot of time together alone. He emphasized, which makes the blush on her face grow. Well, you see, she stammers out until Ichigo appears. Hey you two. He starts to say until he saw Himegami blushing and looking away while Naruto smirks at Ichigo, who pales inwardly. Oh crap, he knows. So when's the wedding, Ichigo, or should I say Tusan? Naruto emphasized while Ichigo's face heats up, but then it ends and had a puzzled look on his face. Wait, Tusan? So you'd actually think of me as a dad even though I'm the Kyuubi? He asked while Naruto shrugs. Yeah, I mean you did teach me some things which most dads do for their kids, plus I think you'd be a great husband for mom. He answered while Ichigo chuckles nervously and rubs the back of his head. Well, that's completely up to Himegami-chan, Naruto. Anyways, we should go on ahead and head to the Ninja Academy since the coronation is in a couple of hours. He stated. That was when Himegami spoke up. Also, Naruto-kun, don't be afraid to show your skills and show them what a true ninja is capable of doing. She stated due to the fact that most kids his age only wanted to be ninja to either be heroes or gain a reputation, but Naruto understood the true reason being a shinobi, and the blonde nods. "Hi Ka-san," Naruto said while she smiled. After that the three headed to the academy for the coronation. Ninja Academy coronation. During the coronation where Hiruzen the Sandaime Hokage made his speech, Naruto looked around the crowd and saw some of the clan heads as well as their children, along with some non-clan ninja parents and their children, and some civilians and their children. Naruto already knew a few of them, but when he saw Kushina a frown formed on his face, but he chose to ignore her appearance and saw Kasumi, who looked like a miniature version of Kushina but wore red sweatpants with a jacket and a blue shirt. He also saw Hinata and her younger sister Hanabi along with Hiashi and Hikari, Hiashi's wife. Himagami managed to help Hikari with her condition when she was giving birth to Hanabi and found a way to cure her illness completely so that she didn't die from giving birth, and Hiashi was eternally grateful. Ever since that day Naruto became best friends with Hinata and always looked out for her, especially when they're around Neji, who was always being a jerk towards her for no reason. Said Branch was always belittling Hinata for her kindness and said someone as weak as her would never amount to anything, but when that occurred Naruto reacted to his verbal abuse against his surrogate little sister by giving him a wicked right hook in the jaw and a black eye. Naruto smiled when he saw Hinata look a little nervous but still showed some form of confidence since she wanted to make her parents and little sister proud. He saw Akemi Haruno and a girl who looked like a miniature version of her with dark pink hair tied in a ponytail and jade green eyes. She was Sakura Haruno. A year ago when Naruto was in the park playing with Hinata, he saw a group of kids picking on her because they were making fun of the color of her hair, but he chased them off and asked Sakura if she wanted to play with him and Hinata for a while, and she agreed to it and later on became friends. After the coronation ended, the parents that knew each other started to talk to each other before their kids entered the academy. With Naruto walked into the academy hallway and saw the other kids but was looking for Hinata, but when he saw an 8-year-old girl with blue hair tied into a ponytail he smirked and snuck behind her. Hinata on the other hand was looking around for Naruto, wondering where he was, unaware that he was behind her. Naruto then poked her in both sides, making her squeak and turn around only to see a smiling Naruto and then glomp the boy. "Naruto-kun, I'm so happy you're here," she said happily while Naruto chuckles and returns the hug. "It's great to see you too, Hinata-chan. So are you ready?" he asks while she nods with a smile on her face. "Hi, but I'm a little nervous," she answered while he eyes smiles. "Don't worry, you'll define. Unlike half of the girls in this place, you and a few others have what it takes to be real kunoichi. Plus you're the heiress of the Hyuga clan and you can do anything you set our mind to," he said, which makes her eyes light up. That was when he felt a hand touch his shoulder and turned his head only to see Sakura smiling shyly at him. Hey Naruto-kun," she said. "Hey Sakura-chan, what's got you all nervous?" he asked. "I'm just worried I won't do great," she answered. "Yes, you will, because I'll be there to help you. Plus you're really smart since your mom is a major in academics and business and knows every single law about the village and knows her way around politics since she is the leader of the civilian council," he assured Sakura, who smiled and blushed a little. "Thanks Naruto-kun, I'll do my best," she said. Afterwards they found their classroom, which was room 302, and entered. When they did, they saw some of the other clan heads' children like Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, Ino Yamanaka, Shino Aburame, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakina Uchina, Kasumi Uzumaki Namikaze, and Kiba Inuzuka. Each of them had different thought. "This is so troublesome," Shikamaru thought while snoozing off into La La Land. "Munch munch. I wonder if mom packed my favorite barbecue," Choji thought while he ate some chips out of a bag. "Oh my gosh, it's Sasuke-kun. He's so handsome. But who's the blonde boy with the streaks in his hair? Whoever he is, he can't be a match for an Uchiha," Ino thought as she set her gaze on the two boys. Shino was quiet. "Whoa, that's the Hyuga princess. She's beautiful, but who does that blonde kid think he is sitting next to her?" Kiba though as he ogled Hinata while said girl felt a shiver go up her spine. Naruto saw it and turned his head to see Kiba growling at him, but said blonde's eyes become as cold as ice, making Kiba back off and show him who the real alpha was. Two-san said that the Naruto kid was interesting because he was adopted by an exile from the clan. He is cute and from the looks of it is very strong. Itachi Ni-san also said there was something special about him. "I wonder what it is," Sakina thought. HMPH, the blonde doesn't look that great. I don't see why Tu-san would be interested in a nobody, especially if he's the son of an exile. Sasuke thought. Ka-san said to be careful around Naruto-kun, but I don't see what's so dangerous about him. Whenever I bring up his name she becomes silent and changes the subject. Kasumi thought. That was when a chunin with a scar going across his nose and he head in a ponytail walked into the classroom and coughed to get their attention, which they did. Hello class, I'm Iruka Amino and for the next 6 years I'll be your teacher and teaching you the way of the ninja. In this class you'll be learning the basics in jutsu, chakra, and using throwing weapons in academics like math, science, reading, geography, and history. He explained, getting groans from most of the class while Naruto sweat drops. Is this guy serious? I've been waiting 2 years to join the academy only to learn the basics again? Great, just great, he thought. 3 months later, Iruka was currently talking about the Shodem Hokage, who was the founder of the village. Naruto was pulling a shikamaru and drooling a little. Said Chunin saw this and a tick mark appeared on his face. He suddenly pulled out a piece of chalk and launched it at Naruto. Said blonde caught the chalk without even opening his eyes, shocking the Chunin and most of the class. Naruto opened his eyes and yawns and looks at the piece of chalk. Sensei, why did you throw a piece of chalk at me? I heard everything you said. Iruka snapped out of his stupor and folded his arms. Really? Well then Naruto, would you like to tell the rest of the class about what I explained about the Shodem Hokage? He asked. Naruto on the other hand was smirking inwardly. So he's trying to intimidate me, huh? Nice try, he thought and started to speak up. The Shodem Hokage, also known as Hashirama Senju, was the founder of Konohagakure no Sato after the end of the clan wars and was also the leader of the Senju clan, a clan who was skilled in all forms of the ninja arts and feared throughout the Shinobi War, and also the village's first Hokage. He, along with his younger brother Tobarama Senju, who became the Naidame Hokage after the first died, were the sensei of the Sandame Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, who is known as the god of shinobi and professor. Hashirama also possessed a Kekkei Genkei called Mokuton, which was the combination of the water and earth element, and he used that ability to create the forests as well as the village. He also possessed the ability to control the 9 Biju using his Mokuton, which suppressed their chakra. He explained, which caused the class to remain quiet and Iruka was stumped. Did I forget anything? Naruto asked. No Naruto, you didn't. Excellent work, he said approvingly while Naruto smirks and falls back asleep, making the man as well as most of the students sweat drop, wondering if he was related to the Nara kid in any way since all they did was sleep. Target area. Iruka took the students outside so that they could work on their kunai training. So far Ino got a 5/10. Shikamaru got the same as did Choji. Kiba got a 4/10, much to his ire. Sakura got a 6/10. Shino got a 7/10. Hinata, Sakina, and Kasumi got an 8/10. Alright, next up is Sasuke Uchiha. Iruka said. Uchiha stepped forward, pulled out the practice kunai, and throws them at the target and manages to hit 8 out of 10 spots, and Ino and the fangirls squeal at how good he was while Hinata, Sakina, Sakura, and Kasumi's brows twitch at how loud they were. Good job Sasuke, he said while Sasuke walked out of the area and sent a smug smirk to Naruto, who rolled his eyes. Next up is Naruto. He paused and looked at Naruto since he didn't have a surname. Kurosaki. It's Naruto Kurosaki. Naruto answered, getting a nod from Iruka. Okay then Naruto Kurosaki, you're up, he said. Naruto walked towards the targets and pulled out his practice kunai. After looking at the spots for a few minutes he smirks and flings all of them at once, making Iruka's eyes widen as well as the other students. As he did this the kunai hit every target's bull's eye and they were embedded into the targets deeply. Unreal, a 10 out of 10. Excellent work Naruto, Iruka said while Naruto nods and walks back towards the stumped class. Sasuke on the other hand was frowning and glaring at the blonde because he got a perfect score. Wow Naruto-kun, you got a perfect score. That's awesome, Hinata said, and Sakura nodded. Yeah Naruto-kun, that was amazing, she said while Naruto smiles. Thanks, my Ka-san trained me to use projectile weapons properly for the last 2 years. You two also did great, especially you Sakura-chan. You scored 6 out of 10 on your first try. You must have been practicing, he stated while she blushed at the praise he was giving her. A month later, So for the past 3 months, the students each did the other courses of training like the ninjutsu training, genjutsu training, and taijutsu training, which Naruto managed to score all perfects in, especially when he went against Sasuke during the taijutsu matches. Flashback. Okay, the last two to spar in a taijutsu match are Naruto Kurosaki and Sasuke Uchiha. He said while the two each walked into the ring, and Sasuke had a smirk on his face while Naruto remained impassive and focused. So Hinata, who do you think will win? Sakura asked her friend, who just grinned. Naruto-kun, of course, she answered, while Ino and Amy, another fangirl, scoffed. Please, he got lucky in those matches. I bet Sasuke-kun's gotten even stronger. Ino stated. Yeah, there's no way he'll win this time. Amy said, while the other two girls rolled their eyes. Ino, how many times has Naruto-kun faced Sasuke and beat him? Hinata asked, while Ino blinks and thinks about it. I don't know, I think 20. She answered. 29, but close enough. And how many times has Sasuke beat Naruto? The Hyuga heiress asks. Ino remains silent while Hinata smirks. That's what I thought, she said, which made Ino fume. Look, Hinata, the match is starting, Sakura said, getting Hinata's attention. Iruka explained the rules in the match, stating that only taijutsu was permitted. Anything else would result in the person being disqualified. Afterwards, he jumped back and watched the two get ready to fight. Ready to lose, Kurosaki? Sasuke asked with a smirk on his face while Naruto looked bored. That's my line, Uchiha, since every match we had you lost, he stated, which made the boy scowl. Those matches were only pure luck. This time I'll show you what an elite from a prestigious clan can do, he proclaimed while Naruto raised an eyebrow. So you're telling me that having your ass kicked 29 times and tasting the pavement are all counts of pure luck? I think your mother dropped you on your head when you were born, he stated, making Sasuke fume and some of the students to snicker. Sasuke suddenly charged at Naruto with his left fist cocked back and aimed for his jaw. Naruto, on the other hand, was in a MMA, mixed martial arts, stance and waited for Sasuke to get closer. Ichigo taught Naruto this form of martial arts because the style could be changed instantly and the opponent wouldn't be prepared for it. When Sasuke threw a left hook at Naruto's jaw, the blonde Uchiha moved to the right without so much as even trying. Sasuke stopped and tried to strike Naruto with a reversal backhand, only for Naruto to duck and deliver an elbow strike to the boy's ribs. Sasuke coughed up spit and then received a palm strike to the chest, which sent the Uchiha flying backwards and hitting the ground hard. All of the boys winced when they heard Sasuke hit the ground. Ouch, that had to hurt, Choji said with Shikamaru nodding. Sasuke got back on his feet and shook the dizziness out and glared angrily at Naruto. Said blonde had a small smile plastered on his face and did a "come on" gesture with his left hand. Sasuke growled when he saw Naruto taunt him. Come on, Sasuke-chan, I barely put any effort in those 2 hits, he said mockingly. Shut up, I'll show you, he screamed and charged at him once again while Naruto sighs. When will you learn? Frontal attacks like that won't work on me. Did those 29 loses mean anything to you? He said as he moved left and right when Sasuke performed a left and right hook at his body. Said Uchiha tried a roundhouse kick, but Naruto blocked it with his forearm, and then he spun and did a reversal, but Naruto caught his foot in his hand and pushed it back. Sasuke's eyes widened and lost his balance with his other foot. Naruto, who had a grip on the boy's foot, used his to knock Sasuke off both of his feet and released the hold he had on his foot. Once again Sasuke fell flat on his back and cried out in pain while Naruto looked down at him. Is that all you've got? Seriously, how can you be related to someone as skilled as Itachi-san? At the very least I can get a decent fight from your sister, who can very much make me try to earn my wins. You're not even considered to be a warm-up for me, he said, which only made Sasuke seethe in anger. You're ignorant, and you think everyone's below you just because you hail from a clan who helped found the village. Not only that, but you're easy to anger, which will be your downfall in the future, so lose the attitude and the ego, cause it's really annoying, he said. Sasuke charged blindly and threw a series of punches and kicks at Naruto, who evaded them all with little effort. Don't talk down to me like you're my better. You're just some no-name orphan who was adopted by some outcast from my clan. You're nothing but a bastard child who was probably abandoned by your real mother because she couldn't stand the sight of having you as a son. He yelled and was about to deliver another punch only for Naruto to catch it. The look on the blonde's face was one of fury and rage, and he started to slowly squeeze Sasuke's fist and said boy winced in pain and struck Naruto with a right hook to the face, but to his surprise it didn't affect him. What happened next shocked everybody else. Naruto grabbed Sasuke by his hair and struck him in the face with a knee strike, and the sound of cartilage breaking was heard. The young Uchiha cried out in pain, stumbled back and clutched his now broken and bleeding nose. The next thing that happened was Naruto kicked Sasuke in the stomach and sent him flying out of the ring and into the ground, rolling backwards until he hit the wall with tears running down his face. All the kids had wide-eyed looks on their faces, and Naruto glared at Sasuke, who struggled to get up. Iruka snapped out of his stupor and declared Naruto the winner, while the young shinobi in training walked out of the ring and back into the school, with Hinata and Sakura going after him. Iruka sighs and speaks up. The rest of you go back in the classroom while I take Sasuke to the hospital to get his nose fixed, he said, walking over to Sasuke and helping the boy up, leading him to the hospital. Lunch break. Naruto was sitting under a tree eating some fried salmon and rice his mother made for him, and then saw Sakina, Sasuke's twin sister, walk towards him with a nervous look on her face. She looked like a miniature version of Makoto, but her skin tone was a light tan color like her older brother's. She wore her raven black hair into a ponytail and wore a dark blue collarless short-sleeved shirt with a fishnet shirt underneath, along with a black skirt and biker shorts underneath. As she carefully approached him, Naruto stopped eating and spoke up. Is there something you want, Sakina-chan? Naruto asked. Since he's been in the academy, he apparently liked Sakina more than her brother due to the fact that she didn't have an ego like he did and was respectful to others. Unlike Sasuke, she gained her Sharingan when she was 6, but it only had 2 tomo in each eye, and she was already adept to using it as well as the other ninja arts. She also had a close relationship with her older brother Itachi, occasionally asked him to help her in using the Sharingan properly, which he did, and even helped her with the basics. Another thing is that she would occasionally hang out with Naruto, Hinata, and Sakura outside of the academy and would train with them now and then, but she did have a temper, especially when it comes to boys think that they were stronger than females, and the last boy that called her weak ended up tasting the pavement and almost beaten near an inch of his life. Another thing was that she developed a small crush on Naruto. When Naruto first had a taijutsu match against her, he was highly impressed with how good she was and even complimented her on her skills and said that they should spar once in a while, which made her happy due to the fact that most boys their age don't like being beaten by girls. Right now a tint of pink appeared on her cheeks and she laughed nervously. Just wondering if I can join you for lunch? She asked. Sure, I could use the company. Hinata and Sakura having lunch with their parents, he said, and scooted over. The female Uchiha walked over to the spot Naruto was in and sat down next to him, pulling out her bento box and chopsticks, and started to eat her lunch. After eating silently for a few minutes, she spoke. Naruto-kun, I want to apologize for my brother's remark. I know that your parentage is a touchy subject for you and he shouldn't have done that, she said, getting a sigh from him. Don't apologize for your brother's actions, Sakina-chan. He should be the one apologizing to me, but thanks anyways, but I'm not sorry I broke his nose, he said while she giggles. Yeah, he actually deserved that, but he should be happy all you did was break his nose, though Ka-san not gonna be happy to see him come home with that shiner you gave him, she states. Itachi on the other hand, well, he'll just say that Sasuke needs to think before he speaks. Yeah, so how is Itachi-san doing now that he's an Anbu captain? He asked. Oh, he's doing fine, well, except for the lack of sleep he doesn't get and the paperwork he has to do. He's scary when he doesn't get his rest and when you mess with his pokey, especially the stash he keeps in a box under his bed, she said, and thought it was weird for her older brother to have an addiction to candy of all things. Really? I never thought your brother of all people would be hooked on pokey. Then again, my Aniki Inu and the old man are perverts who read smut, he said while her jaw dropped. After that they just hung out and talked with Hinata and Sakura joining them. Classroom. The academy students were now in their seats waiting for Iruka to come back. Sasuke was sitting in the front row with a bandage covering his nose and was glaring at the table. Sakina saw this and shook her head. Serves you right for being a jerk, oh Tuto, she thought. That was when Iruka walked into the classroom with what looked like cards in his hands. Alright everyone, the first semester has ended and in my hands are your report cards. For those who did well, I'm proud to see you take the career as a future ninja seriously, but for those who didn't do well, I expect better from you in the second semester," he said, and walked around the rows handing out each report card. When Sakina got hers, a grin formed on her face, as did Hinata, Sakura, and Kasumi. Sasuke got his and smirked, as did Naruto. Kiba got his and his jaw dropped. "Ah man, mom's gonna kill me," he wailed out and slammed his head on the table. Ino got hers and was stumped. "What AC? This isn't fair, I studied hard this semester," she whined. Shikamaru had a lazy look on his face and snorts. "Troublesome, I got a B+, he said. After class, Naruto was currently with his mother Himegami and Ichigo outside the classroom and showed them his report card. The Uchiha goddess looked down at her son's happy face and gives him a hug. "I'm so proud of you, Sochi," she said while Ichigo smirks and ruffles his hair. "Good job, kid. I think a report card this awesome deserves an award. During your break, I'm gonna teach you a technique my former sensei taught me, and it's called shunpo or flash step. Trust me when I say this movie's an amazing technique, and unlike Shunshin, it doesn't require any hand seals," he said. "Thanks, Ichigo. So have you two thought about it?" he asked while they blinked a few times and then blushed. "Actually we have, and I've decided to marry your mom in a few more months, so by then I'll officially be your dad," he said, and Naruto reacted by giving the former Shinigami a hug, which made Ichigo chuckle and pat him on the head. "Now let's head home and celebrate," he said as they left the academy grounds. While they were walking towards the Hokage mountain, Ichigo took Himegami's hand in his, surprising her as she looked at him and saw him smiling. She blushed prettily and smiled as she placed a firm grip in his, and the soon-to-be Kurosaki family headed home and wondered what the future will hold for them. 3 years have passed since Naruto entered the academy, and already he was above the other students, but he never let it go to his head but instead trained even harder. His training has improved a lot thanks to Himegami's and Ichigo's training. When he turned 10, Himegami decided to start teaching him the basics in Fuinjutsu and had him read about the designs and complexity of different seals before having him work on intermediate seals. The female Uchiha was impressed to see how well adapted he was in understanding seals and how they operated, but then again, he was the son of the man who created a jutsu that allowed him to wipe out an entire army in the blink of an eye. So far the young blonde was intermediate at best, but had a long ways to go before he could be on par with his former mother, or Minato for that matter. Speaking of which, at first Naruto was angry and confused why the man would condemn him to such a life without knowing the repercussions of his actions, but after having it explained by Himegami and Ichigo from their point of view, he started to understand a little more. Also, there were times when Kakashi and Rin would visit the young blonde and talk to him about what kind of person Minato was like when they were his students, and even talked about the powerful shinobi that came from Konoha and other nations, like Kakashi's father Tsukumo Hitaki for example. Naruto was really interested in knowing about the Shiroi no Kiba, White Fang, who was said to be even stronger than the Sannin. During those 3 years, Kakashi and Rin had a baby girl whom they named Takara. She looked like Rin, with the difference being that she had silver gray hair like her dad but was in the same style as her mother's and had her eyes. The little girl was a ball of energy, much to her parents' surprise, and was always curious. When they brought her over, Takara was instantly attached to Naruto and called him Naruto ni. Right now the three were at the Kurosaki complex where Rin was playing with Takara while Naruto and Kakashi watched. "Hey Aniki," Naruto spoke up. "Yeah?" Kakashi asked, reading the latest edition of Uchiha, which made the blonde sweat drop. "From what I heard, you possessed a fully mature Sharingan in your left eye," the blonde stated, which made the man lower the book and look at his surrogate little brother. "Yes I do. Why?" the copy ninja asked. "Well, I was just curious why you always covered it up," Naruto asked Kakashi, who eyes smiled. "That's because I got it from my friend Obito Uchiha as a parting gift. Rin was the one who transplanted it into the eye I lost when we went to go look for her when she was kidnapped by an Iwa Nen. I can use it, but I have a limit since it takes a lot of chakra from me, plus there's the fact that I'm not an Uchiha by blood like you and your mother are, so I can't use it at its fullest. I heard you gained a fully mature Sharingan during the blood ritual she performed to make you her son in blood," Kakashi said, getting a nod from the blonde, and he activated his Sharingan. Kakashi whistled lowly while Naruto deactivated his eyes. "That's pretty amazing. Yeah, Ka-san showed me how to use it the correct way and not just to copy others' jutsu. No offense to you though. he said while the man chuckled. None taken o tuto. I only copied the techniques of my enemies and from my comrades with their permission of course. He replied. So that's how you got over 1,000 jutsu in your arsenal. Do you think you can teach me a few of them? He asked with a grin on his face while Kakashi's eyes smiled and nodded. Sure, say how far in your training are you? Kakashi asked. Me? Well, I already got the tree walking and water walking exercise down. I know my elemental affinities, which are all the main elements and sub-elements due to my body-based bloodline, and I'm also learning how to use different weapon varieties. My two-san Ichigo is teaching me his form of taijutsu and kenjutsu as well as techniques he created, and I'm learning fuinjutsu from my ka-san. He answered, which caused Kakashi to go wide-eyed and drop his book until he snapped out of his stupor and rubbed the back of his head. Wow, Naruto, you keep this up and you'll more than likely be at Itachi's level by the time you graduate. He stated while Naruto shrugs, and that was when he was glomped by 3-year-old Takara. Naruto ni. She squealed out while the blonde chuckles and picks her up while standing up. Rin walks over to the two and sighs. What's up, Squirt? Are being a good girl for your ka-san and two-san? He asked while Takara nodded her hair enthusiastically. Takara-chan's a good girl, she said with a big grin on her face while he placed her on his shoulders. She wrapped her legs around his neck and buried her face into his hair. Ni-chan's hair is so soft, she said, which made the blonde blush a little while Rin giggles and Kakashi snickers. Well, isn't that cute? Said a voice, and the three looked up to see Ichigo on the rooftop crouching down and grinning. Hey Kakashi-san, Rin-chan. The two married couple waved back at him. Two-san? Where's Ka-san? He asked his stepfather. Himagami-chan? Oh, she went out of the village to get a few things she kept hidden and should be back later on today. He answered and then hopped off the roof and landed next to Naruto and Takara. Said silver-haired girl looked up at the man's hair and grinned. Hi Uncle Strawberry, she said cheekily, which made Ichigo stumble over at being called a strawberry. Kakashi chuckled, Rin giggled, and Naruto laughed and said orange-haired Kurosaki glared at the trio and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment, but then walked over to Takara and ruffles her hair. Real cute kid, he replied with a small smile while Takara giggled. Hey Naruto ni, can we get some ice cream, huh, can we? She asked and gave her parents the puppy eyes and pouted. Yes, you can go, Takara-chan, but you have to stick with your and Naruto. Make sure she doesn't get stuck in a tree like she did the last time. Rin instructed due to the fact that when Naruto took her to the park she ended up climbing a tree, but when she looked down, she freaked out and started to cry her eyes out. Naruto managed to get her down from the tree and calm the scared girl down. Okay, let's go Ni-san, Takara said excitedly, bouncing up and down on the blonde's shoulders. Hey now calm down, Squirt, Naruto said humorously. I'll be back later on, Two-san. Ichigo smirks and waves him off. Sure thing, kiddo, just be sure you come back before the lights come on or your mother will have my head. He said back while the blonde snickers and heads out with Takara on his shoulders. In the market district, Naruto was carrying a happy Takara who was on his shoulders eating an ice cream cone on his shoulders. Most of the civilians that saw him either had looks of surprise or shame on their face due to the fact that most of them had treated the boy wrong when he was younger, thinking he was the Nine Tails and that they dishonored their late Yondaimi's wish for him to be seen as a hero. Some were neutral because they didn't know how to react towards the boy. You enjoying that cone, Takara-chan? Naruto asked the 3-year-old, who nodded happily. Thank you for buying it for me, Naruto ni, she replied gratefully. You're welcome, he said, and that was when Kakashi appeared. Yo Takara-chan, it's time to head back home, he said, and the girl pouted. Two-san, do we have to? She whined, performing the puppy eyes jutsu, and got a nod from her dad. Sorry, but yes. Thanks again for taking her out for ice cream, Naruto, Kakashi replied as he took Takara off Naruto's shoulders. No problem, Aniki. See ya later, Squirt, he said, and got a goodbye wave from the girl, and then Kakashi shunshins away. Naruto started to walk away, but the next thing he knew, he was pulled into a bear hug by none other than Anko Mitarashi. Hey Yondaime Gaki, the grinning snake user said as she hugged the blonde close to her body. See, can't be breathe. He strained out, but he manages to phase out of the hug and then regain his breathing and glared at the snake using Kunoichi, who was blinking in shock and surprise. Please stop doing that, Anko-chan, Naruto muttered. How did you do that? Anko asked the blonde who smirks. My Ka-san taught me. Say where's Kurenai-chan? Naruto asked as he looked around while Anko scowls and folds her arms. She'll be here soon. Say why are you always anxious to see the Ice Queen and not little old me? What I'm not pretty enough? She asked with a pout on her face. Because she doesn't try to use me for target practice. He replied as he folded his arms. Anko on the other hand smiles sheepishly. Oh come on now, that only happened once and your mom said I could help you work in improving your reflexes. She stated, and now Naruto had a tick mark on his head. She said teach me in improving my reflexes, not turn me into a living pincushion. He growled out, glaring at the snake user who shrugs, which only ticked him off more, and was tempted to use Tsukuyomi on the snake user. Hey, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, Yondaime Gaki. She said nonchalantly. And what have I said about calling me that? I know I look like my old man, but really it's starting to get annoying. Replied a peeved Naruto. Still harassing Naruto-kun, huh Anko? Have you no shame? Asked a calm and feminine voice. They turned their heads to see Kurenai Yuhi. She had long and wild black hair, and very unique eyes that are red in color, with an additional ring in them. She was wearing the standard Konoha shinobi outfit with a flak jacket and a simple sleeveless red shirt and black fitting pants underneath it and standard shinobi sandals. Hey Nai-chan, Anko called out, waving at the red-haired beauty while the young blonde blushed a little and averted his gaze at a store. Anko saw this and her grin grew. Man Gaki, I knew you had a crush on my best friend here, but wow. Your face is close to matching an apple. Naruto glared at the grinning snake user while Kurenai rolled her eyes, but a small smile formed on her face. While she was known as the Ice Queen due to the fact that most men would only leer at her or ogle her body, Naruto was a different case and found it cute that he developed a crush on her even though she was in her late teens, especially when he drop-kicked a drunken man in the face when he attempted to grope her rear and threatened to castrate another with a heated-up pocket knife. Anko, knock it off. Hello Naruto-kun, how are you doing today? She asked in a warm and kind voice. Fine Kurenai-chan, he said, still looking away, which made Kurenai giggle at how he was acting. She especially remembered when Anko teased him about having Kurenai being taken by someone else when he was 9 years old, and he proclaimed loudly that the only male good enough for Kurenai was him, and he vowed to marry her one day, which resulted in Anko falling to the ground laughing her ass off, and Naruto and Kurenai were embarrassed due to the fact that he proclaimed that when they were at a store. Glad to hear that. So where are your parents at? She asked. Oh, dad is currently relaxing at the house and Ka-san left the village to get a few things. He explained and saw a tuft of light brown hair sticking out behind Kurenai, and he raised a brow. Hey Kurenai-chan, who's that behind you? Naruto asked the genjutsu user who blinks and turns around. It's alright Yakumo-chan, come out and introduce yourself. She gestures and uses her hand to gently push her in front so Naruto and Anko can get a good look at her. She was a little shorter than Naruto and had light brown hair that stopped to her mid-back and light brown eyes. She was fair-skinned and wore a purple kunoichi outfit with a black sash wrapped around her waist as well as a mesh shirt and black ninja sandals. Hi, I'm Yakumo Kurama, she said shyly to Anko and Naruto. Ah, how cute, Kurenai got herself an apprentice. Anko cooed out only to be elbowed on the side by an annoyed Naruto. Quit it, Naruto retorted and walked over to the nervous girl. Hey Yakumo-chan, I'm Naruto Kurosaki and the lady with the bad fashion sense is Anko Mitarashi. He replied, which caused Anko to stumble over and glare at the blonde while Yakumo and Kurenai giggled. I don't have a bad fashion sense. What's wrong with what I'm wearing? She asked as she opened up her trench coat, revealing the mesh body that hugged her curved and well-toned body like a second skin. Naruto blushed and pointed to his left, and Anko blinked for a few seconds and looked over to where he was pointing at, and sweat dropped when she saw most of the males passed out with puddles of blood seeping out their nose. Oh well, they don't count because they're perverts, she said, huffing up while Naruto shook his head and leaned over to Yakumo. Word of advice, stay away from her if you want to keep your sanity. He whispered, which made her blink. Is she really that bad, Naruto-kun? She asked the blonde, who nodded. I heard that Gaki, and no, I'm not that bad. Anko proclaimed. I can be kind and nurturing like your girlfriend here, she stated with a smirk when she saw Naruto blush and glare at her. Kurenai-chan's not my girlfriend, he yelled. Yet, anyways, I didn't think you'd take an apprentice, Kurenai-chan. Naruto stated and heard her sigh. I didn't either. I just hope I'm good enough to train her. The red-eyed beauty said with doubt in her voice, and apparently Naruto didn't like how she doubted herself. Good enough? You're one of the best ninja in the village like Kakashi ni-san and Rin-ne-chan are. You'll make a great teacher for Yakumo-chan, and anyone who says otherwise is just jealous of you. He stated with a grin on his face. Kurenai smiled at the praise he gave her, and it was true since she was the best genjutsu users since her skills in the art rivaled that of the Uchihas and members of the Kurama clan. Cough kisapkow. Anko coughed and then leaps away when Naruto pulls out a black bakken, wooden sword, out a seal from his wrist where he keeps his weapons and attempts to hit her side, and she lands on a rooftop grinning. I give you an A for effort but an F for your timing and precision, Naru-chan. She jeered at the pissed of blonde who had a dangerous grin on his face and his now activated Sharingan eyes were twitching like crazy. Stay right where you are, Anko Mitarashi. Naruto said in a calm yet deadly voice until Anko gave him a raspberry and shunshuns away. Naruto then turns towards Kurenai and Yakumo Ai smiling. If you ladies will excuse me, I have a snake to skin. He said and shunpoed away. They remain silent for a while until Yakumo tugs on her teacher's sleeve. Anyo Kurenai sensei, will Naruto-kun be alright? She asked while the red-eyed beauty sighs. Yes, this is something that occurs whenever they meet. Anko teases us until Naruto snaps and chases her around Konoha until nightfall. She answered while brushing a strand of hair back. Oh, so he actually has a crush on you? Yakumo asked Kurenai, who chuckles and shakes her head. Sadly yes, and has had it since he was 8. When I first met him he asked me if I was an angel in disguise. She explained while scratching the tip of her nose with her index finger. Anyhow, let's get you home. I don't want your uncle getting worried. After hunting down Anko for about 5 hours, he appeared in a training ground with a peeved expression on his face. One of these days I swear I'm gonna get her. He muttered but then ducked when a kunai whizzed past him and hit a tree branch. What the? Oi, who's throwing kunai? He yelled, and out of the bushes came a girl who seemed to be a year older than Naruto. She had brown hair that had 2 buns on the sides of her head and was wearing a pink sleeveless Chinese shirt with forest green pants and blue sandals and was rubbing the back of her head in embarrassment. Sorry, I didn't know there was someone else here. She apologized while Naruto sighs and stands back up. It's fine, I didn't get hit though I did lose a few strands of hair. He stated as she approached him and blinked. Say I remember you. You and a man who wore black and had orange spiky hair always came to my dad's shop. She stated and Naruto blinked. You must be talking about my stepdad Ichigo. I'm Naruto, he said holding out his hand. Tenten Higurashi. So you're the academy student all the teachers were talking about. My teacher mentioned a blonde with black streaks in his hair was the top of his current class. That must be you, she said while Naruto shook her hand in return. Yeah, that's me. You're in the advanced classes, right? He asked and got a nod from Tenten, and she noticed Naruto's bakken. So you're learning how to use a sword as well? She asked and Naruto nodded. Yeah, I am, but my mother is also teaching me how to use other weapons like a bow staff, kusari gama, scythe, and other weapons. He answered, which made her gawk. Wow, your mom sounds like a slave driver, she said grinning while he rubbed the back of his head. Tell me about it, but hey, if I want to be a great ninja like she is, I have to go through a little pain no matter how torturing it is. He said nonchalantly, which made her sweat drop. Okay, she said rubbing the back of her head. Well, it's getting late, and if you ever want to spar in weapon katas let me know. I could always use a partner's, she said, and then left the training field waving back to the blonde who waves back and was about to leave until he sensed something nearby and activated the Sharingan. Is there a reason why you're spying on me, Kushina-san? Naruto asked in a dangerous tone, and the redhead walked out of the forest. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her and held the bakken tightly in his hand, not letting his guard down for a second and channeling wind chakra into it. Kushina noticed this and brought her hands up as a form of peace. Wait please, I didn't come here to try anything, I only came to talk, I swear, she stated while his eyes glowed red for a while to see if there was any form of deception in her eyes. Is that right? And why should I believe you? Naruto asked harshly, which made Kushina flinch at his tone and look at the ground in shame, and that was when Naruto felt a gloved hand on his shoulder and looked up to see Ichigo, who had a stern look on his face. Because she knows that if she tried anything she'd have to deal with me. I witnessed your chase with that Anko lady and I have to say you're getting better at shunpo. He said, smirking, but then got serious. So Kushina, mind telling me what you want with my son? Kushina looked up at Ichigo and knew he was the Kyuubi and has been taking of Naruto along with Himegami ever since that day, and found out that a masked ninja was responsible for him attacking the village and the death of her husband. I only wanted to give Naruto what is rightfully his. She answered and got a raised brow from the man. And you didn't give it to him earlier because? Ichigo asked. Because your wife is very cautious of me and doesn't trust me to go near Naruto and would think I'm trying to pull something. She answered while the orange-haired man folded his arms. Can't say I blame her. He replied, which made her flinch again, and then she reaches into her vest and pulls out a few scrolls and places them on the ground. These scrolls contain the Namikaze clan's techniques, including the ones your father made. The others are from my side of the Uzumaki clan and they each contain jutsu for the different elements as well as the other ninja arts. She said as she backed away from them. Ichigo walked around Naruto and towards the 3 scrolls and eyes them for a while and then looks up at Kushina. They're not booby-trapped, Ichigo-san, as I know what the consequences would be should I attempt to try anything. Kushina assured them, and Ichigo looked for any form of deceit in her eyes and saw none. He then picked them up and tossed them to Naruto. She then started to turn around and leave afterwards until she felt a hand grab her wrist and turned her head to see Naruto looking up at her. Thank you, Kushina. Even though I can't see you as my mother, I will not let what happened in the past cloud my judgment. If you want, we can start off being friends. He offered. Kushina eyes smiled while tears fell from her face and she nodded. I'd like that very much, Naruto-kun, and if you can do me a favor and look out for Kasumi-chan for me when I'm not around, I'd be very grateful. She asked and he nodded back. He was mostly neutral to Kasumi but would make small talk whenever he met her in the districts. And if you need any help on those jutsu I gave you, feel free to come by the Namikaze estates. She said and vanished in a swirl of wind. Ichigo placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and said. Blonde looked up to see the man smiling. That was a very mature thing you did, Naruto. Wallowing in the past is not healthy for anyone, and doing so would ruin not only your life but will also affect the ones you care about. Now the scary part is explaining this whole thing to your mother. He said. Oh, there's no need for that, said a feminine voice behind them, and the two jumped up in surprise and turned around to see Himegami, who had an amused look on her face. Ka-san? I thought you would be gone for another day. Naruto stated. I know, but I managed to find the certain items I had stashed away a day earlier and headed back. Himegami then noticed the small scrolls in Naruto's hand and raised a brow. So Kushina gave you your inheritance, huh, Sochi? She asked, and the blonde nodded. Yes, she did. She offered to help me out with any of the techniques that are in the scrolls, if that's okay with you, Ka-san. Naruto asked Himegami, who pondered on this and nodded. It's fine with me now, come on. Let's head home because my feet are killing me. She stated, but then squeaked out in surprise when Ichigo scooped her up in his arms and held her bridal style. What are you doing? She asked her husband, who just grinned. What? You said your feet hurt, so I'm gonna carry you home, Megami-chan. He answered while she blushed at his lady killer grin. It was a figure of speech. She protested, getting a shrug from him. So what if it was? I still want to carry you, he said cheekily, and she looked away blushing. Naruto on the other hand rolled his eyes. If you two are done flirting, can we go home? Naruto asked the two. Alright, kiddo. Bet I could race you back to the compound while carrying your mother. Ichigo challenged while Naruto grinned. You're one, Naruto said, and they shunpoed to the compound, leaving a small streak of dust. A week later, after the academy classes were over with, Naruto was heading into the market district until he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned his head to see none other than Kasumi Namikaze. She looked the same as her mother but had a blonde highlight in her red hair. Hey Naruto-kun, she said as she pulled her hand away from his shoulder. Hello Kasumi-chan, what's up? He asked the redhead, who shrugged. Not much. I saw you heading to the market district and wanted to know if you'd like to get some ramen? She asked. Naruto said. Blonde thought about it and nodded. Sure, I don't have to be home for a while, he said, and then ducked when a blur flew over his head and skidded across the ground, revealing Sakina Uchiha, who stomped her foot in frustration. Naruto and Kasumi snickered at how she's acting. I almost had you, darn it, she said and huffed up while Kasumi giggled. Sakina-chan, I could smell you from a mile away. Plus your chakra was easy to sense. You should consider trying to suppress it more," he stated while she pouted. "Shut up. So where are you two going?" Sakina asked. "To get some ramen. Wanna join us?" Naruto asked, unaware of the tick mark that formed on Kasumi's face. "Ah, come on. How hard is it for me to spend some time with Naruto-kun?" she screamed in her mindscape. That was when Sakina appeared beside him with her arms wrapped around his arm with a grin on her face which only irked Kasumi. "Great, let's go then." Kasumi walked over to Naruto's other side and wrapped her arms around his arm. "Yes, let's," Sakina replied with a forced smile on her face. Naruto blinked in confusion, wondering what was up with them while they made their way to Ichiraku's. As they entered the stand, Tucci, the owner of the ramen shop, saw Naruto, Akemi, and Kasumi and smiled. Well, if it isn't my favorite customers," he said, getting a returned smile from them as they sat down on the stools. "Hey Tucci, how's it going?" Naruto asked the man. "Not much, kiddo. Just selling ramen as usual," he answered. Ayame, Tucci's 14-year-old daughter, entered from behind the shop and saw Naruto and grinned. "Hey Naruto-kun," she said, getting the blonde's attention, and Naruto grinned back. "Hey Ayame-chan, you're looking well. I guess my Ka-san's remedy helped you with that cold that lasted for 2 weeks, huh?" he asked the girl, who nodded. "It sure did. Do you think it's possible for me to get the ingredients for the cure from her?" she asked. "I'll see what I can do. So is there anything new on the menu?" he asked as he grabbed one of the menus and opened it up. "Well, we just recently created a new ramen flavor, but we haven't tested it yet," Tucci stated, and then grinned. "Perhaps you and your company would like to test it out," he suggested with a glint in his eye which made Ayame's sweat drop. Naruto blinked a few times and shrugs. "Sure, I'll give it a try. What about you two?" he asked Kasumi and Sakina, who thought about it and nodded. "Sure, we'll try it," Kasumi answered. "Great, just give me a sec to make it," he said, and turned around and proceeded to make it. While he was doing that, Kasumi decided to start up a conversation. "Naruto-kun, can I ask you a question?" the redhead asked. "Sure, what is it?" he asked Kasumi, who looked a little skeptic for a while and spoke up. "Do you think you can ever forgive my Ka-san for what she's done?" she asked Naruto, who raised an eyebrow and sighs while brushing his hair back. "Forgive? Yes, but forget no. Right now Kushina's trying to make it up to me by offering to teach me how to use the Uzumaki clan's bloodline properly, and also gave me my biological father's techniques. And so that you know, while I am still upset, I'm not the type to hold a grudge, so I'll give her a chance to redeem herself," he said with a small smile on his face, and she smiled brightly. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," Kasumi said gratefully, while Sakina wondered what they were talking about. Tucci managed to finish the order. "Alright, here it is," he said, and placed 3 bowls in front of them. In it was ramen and a variety of meats and vegetables, but the noodles seemed to have a tint of red on them. "This is the new ramen recipe I came up with. I call it curry ramen, and it's very spicy." In one bowl they could hear sizzling and looked skeptic. "Is it supposed to hiss at us?" Sakina asked, while the man chuckled. "Just try it and trust your taste buds will be screaming afterwards," he replied. So the 3 took their chopsticks, scooped up some ramen, and each took a bite and swallowed the noodles. Tucci and Ayame watched with anticipation, wondering how they'll react. "Wow, this isn't so bad," Kasumi replied, but then her eyes bugged out, as did Sakina's, and they dropped their chopsticks. Naruto paused for a second and steam escaped from his ears. A few seconds later the sound of screaming could be heard coming out of the ramen stand, which surprised those who were passing by the stand and wondered what was going on. A red-faced Sakina and Kasumi came bolting out of the stand, crying out in agony. "Water! I need water!" Sakina cried out. "My mouth's on fire!" Kasumi wailed and shot a stream of fire from her mouth for emphasis, causing everyone to sweat drop as they attempted to fan their mouths with their hands while anime tears fell from their faces. Naruto walked out with 2 large glasses of water and approached them. They saw it and instantly grabbed the glasses and gulped down the water. Naruto, on the other hand, chuckled at this, and when they finished drinking, Ayame walked out of the stand looking sheepish. "I'm so sorry about that, Sakina-chan, Kasumi-chan. The curry-flavored ramen was a prototype and Tusan needed to test it on someone," she apologized. "Apologize for what? I thought it was great," Naruto stated, which made them turn bug-eyed and look at him in disbelief. "What? I like spicy food, especially the type Ka-san makes, so I'm used to eating stuff like that. You two, on the other hand, are lightweights," he teased, which made them blush in embarrassment and glare at Naruto. After that little scene, the three of them just spent their time walking around and talking until they heard the sound of a log being punched repeatedly. "What's that noise?" Kasumi asked. "Don't know. Let's check it out," Sakina stated as they went to the direction where the sounds were coming from. As they made it through the forest, they saw someone who appeared to be a year older than them. He had bug eyes and 2 large eyebrows. His hair was jet black and cut above his shoulders and wore a Chinese attire with blue sandals. He was Rock Lee and was currently punching and kicking a log post repeatedly with. "I must be able to perform 1,000 punches and kicks before nightfall, and if I can't do that, then I'll do 2,000 push-ups and sit-ups before the next sunrise," he said to himself as he continued to strike the post with his fists and feet. The others were watching this and Naruto couldn't help but be impressed. "Man, whoever this guy is, he can sure push himself," Naruto stated. "Judging from the imprints on the training post, he's been at this for at least 2 hours. Kasumi's and Sakina's eyes widened when they heard his comment. Lee continued his exercise but started to get exhausted. "No, I must keep going on. I must prove that hard work can overcome the skills of a genius," he said, but the overexertion was too much and he collapsed onto the ground and goes unconscious. Naruto leaps out of the bushes and crouches down to check Lee's pulse while Kasumi and Sakina came out of the bushes as well. "He's fine, just suffering from exhaustion," Naruto stated and then hefted the unconscious boy over his shoulder. "Let's get this guy to a hospital and afterwards I'll escort you two home." Night. The street lights were on and the shops were starting to close. Right now Naruto was escorting Sakina to the Uchiha clan district after taking Kasumi back to the Namikaze clan compound. "Thanks for escorting me back home, Naruto-kun, even though you didn't have to," she proclaimed while he smiled. "I know, but I'm just making sure you make it home all right," he replied while she smiled at how he was being a gentleman. As they entered the Uchiha district, Naruto paused and frowned while Sakina did the same. "What is it?" she asked Naruto, who remained still. "Something's wrong here. The lights in the district aren't even on yet, and also..." His eyes widened in shock. "The strong scent of blood and smoke is in the air." Sakina's eyes widened as well when she heard this. What? Then that means..." She suddenly took off. "Sakina, wait!" Naruto yelled and went after her. She ran around a corner and gasped in horror at what she saw. The streets were littered with the dead and scorched bodies of members of her clan and she covered her mouth up. Naruto managed to catch up with her and he was horrified at the sight as well. "My Kami? Who could have done this?" he wondered, and that was when they heard a groan and saw one of the members lean against the wall clutching his bleeding arm. "Uncle Kohaku!" Sakina cried out and ran over to the injured man. Said Uchiha looked up to see his niece and a blonde running towards him. Sakina?" he said and gritted his teeth in pain. "What happened? Who has done this?" she asked the man while Naruto's hand glowed green and started to heal his arm. It was Shisui," he answered. "He just appeared out of nowhere and started to attack everyone who was in his path." What? But why? Why would he do this?" she asked until they heard an explosion. That came from, "Oh no, Ka-san. To-san." She ran off to her family compound much to the protest of Naruto. "Sakina-chan, wait. You just can't," he stated until Kohaku placed a hand on his shoulder. "Hey kid, you have to stop her before she gets hurt," the man replied and slowly staggered to his feet. "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine since only my arm was injured. Now go," he ordered. Naruto nodded and then he tapped a seal under his arm and a sheathed ninjutsu appeared in his hand and he took off. Meanwhile, an explosion erupted from the wall of the compound and leaping through the explosion was Fugaku, who was holding his wife in his arms, and he crashed into the ground but with severe scorch marks on his clothes and he was gravely injured. Makoto saw the state her husband was in and was horrified. "Makoto-chan, are you okay?" he asked while blood dripped from his mouth. "Fugaku-kun, you're hurt badly," she said while tears formed in her eyes. "I know, damn that Shisui," Fugaku growled out, but then his body jerked due to the fact that he was impaled through the heart by a blade and his blood splattered on Makoto's face. "Weakling, you don't deserve to call yourself the clan head," Shisui said in a cold tone before ripping his blade out of the man's back and kicking him away. "Fugaku!" Makoto screamed out while tears fell from her face when she saw the life leave her husband's eyes. Shisui on the other hand smiled evilly when he saw this and spat on the dead man's face. God riddance. Trash like him has no right to call himself an Uchiha. He then set his gaze on Makoto and raised his blade. Don't feel too bad because you'll be joining him in the afterlife, he said and swung his blade down at her head. Clang! Shisui's katana was stopped by a ninjutsu and the wielder happened to be none other than Naruto Kurosaki. Said blonde's Sharingan eyes were glowing red and he gave the Uchiha a murderous look. Before Shisui could respond, a cage bunshin appeared into the air behind the man and threw a volley of kunai and shuriken at the man who leapt away and glared at Naruto. Beat it, outcast. This is none of your concern, he said while Sakina ran to her mother and hugged the distraught woman. Shut up. You murdered your own kin in cold blood, you bastard, Naruto remarked while Shisui scoffed, not caring about what he did. So what if I did? Doing so gave me the power I needed. The true power of the Uchiha clan. That was when a sick smile formed on his face. Why don't I show you what this power is by killing you with it? His eyes changes and morphed into an atomic symbol and a maniacal grin was on his face. Amaterasu, sun goddess. Black flames suddenly shot out of nowhere and headed right for Naruto, Makoto, and Sakina. Damn it, I can't evade that, the blonde said frantically as the flames got closer and started to go through some hand signs until Kamui, might of the gods, said a calm yet deadly voice. A warp void suddenly appeared in front of them and sucked the flames in, surprising them and Shisui. Impossible, who did that? Shisui shouted, and that was when a lone figure appeared in front of Naruto, Sakina, and Makoto. They realized who it was. Itachi ni-san? Sakina asked while said Uchiha looked back and his eyes like Shisui's were morphed and were in the form of a curved tri-pronged shuriken. Itachi? What are you doing? Shisui started to ask until his eyes widened due to the fact that he sensed something behind him and he twisted his body and used his blade to block another from another Itachi who had a murderous look on his face. The cage bunshin scoped up a distraught Makoto in his arms and also grabbed Sakina and Shunshin's away with Naruto following via Shunpo. You're gonna pay for what you've done, traitor, Itachi said in a cold and murderous voice while Shisui smirked. I'd like to see you try, Shisui taunted as their Mangekyo Sharingan spun wildly. The cage bunshin appeared with Makoto and Sakina near a safe house away from the Uchiha clan district where those who managed to get away from Shisui's assault were hiding. Naruto did as well with his ninjutsu strapped to his back. Itachi, what's going on? Why is Shisui doing this? Makoto asked while the tears streamed down her face. The bunshin was about to speak up until it was hit in the skull by a kunai and dispelled, surprising the group. Well, it looks like I found some stragglers, said a voice from the shadows. Sakina ran to her mother and hugged her closely, trembling in fear, while a man with black spiky hair wearing a mask with odd markings, with a single eye hole, and a black cloak walked out of the shadows. Naruto instantly drew his ninjutsu and stood on front of Makoto and Sakina. Who are you? Naruto growled out, which the tomo in his eyes spun rapidly. The masked man paused as he saw those eyes and narrowed his. In a burst of speed no one could follow, he appeared in front of a surprised Naruto and swatted his blade aside like it was nothing and grabbed the blonde by his throat and hoisted him into the air. Naruto-kun, put him down, Sakina cried while said blonde struggled in the man's grip. This is the same boy who had Kyuubi sealed in him, but now I don't even sense a speck of the beat's chakra, and his eyes, the power emitting from them, feels familiar. He thought, where is the Kyuubi boy? Tell me or I'll make sure you and those two suffer for this. He growled out and pulled out a kunai, ignoring the protesting screams from Makoto and Sakina while he raised the weapon. He was about to drive it into Naruto's shoulder, but that was when a hand grabbed his wrist and stopped his attack. What the? Madara said in shock and turned his head to see the glowing red eyes of Ichigo Kurosaki, and the man was beyond pissed. Madara dropped Naruto, who gasped and sucked in air while Sakina ran over to help him. Hello Madara, Ichigo said venomously while the canines from his upper lip jutted out. Remember me? Because I sure as hell remember you. Ichigo roared and kicked the man in the torso so hard that he heard his ribs crack and was sent flying into a tree and leaving an imprint of his body. Madara gasped out in pain as he has never been kicked like that since he fought Hashirama and Himegami. Who are you? Madara wheezed out while clutching his broken ribs. Who am I? You should know since you forced me to attack the village and destroyed Naruto's family, you bastard. Ichigo replied as he held his right hand out and summoned Tensa Zangetsu. Madara's eyes widened in surprise as he saw Kyuubi in human form. Kyuubi? He asked in astonishment and then grinned behind his mask. So my pet found a way to escape. Too bad you'll be doing a repeat in destroying this pathetic village. He said as his eyes morphed into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and attempted to force his influence on Ichigo. Said former Shinigami smiled darkly and slowly approached the man. Madara's eyes widened in disbelief at what was happening. Why aren't my eyes working on you? He asked in frustration. That would be thanks to me, said a feminine yet dangerous voice. Madara's blood ran cold as he heard the voice and slowly turned around to see someone he feared more than death. His older sister. Himagami? Dread and fear was in the man's voice as he saw his eldest sister with her scythe drawn. Hello little brother. How dare try to harm my son and force your influence on my husband? She said, activating her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and flared her chakra around the area. Madara started to step back slowly as the two glared at him and ready to tear him apart. I should have killed you right after Hashirama defeated you in the Valley of the End. You have caused nothing but trouble, taking Naruto's chance of happiness from him when he was born, and now you're attempting to massacre our kin and kill him. Said asked coldly. This is bad. There's no way I can fight her of all people. She used to beat me and Izuna for fun when we were kids. From the looks of it, she hasn't lost any of her strength at all. I have to get Shisui and get out of here. He thought. As much as I would love to have a family reunion with you, Nade-Chani had to cut this meeting short. He said and suddenly warped away while Ichigo attempted to decapitate him with his blade and curses. Damn it, fucking coward, Ichigo said angrily and looked back at Makoto and Sakina. Are you three alright? He asked and got a nod from them while Himagami checked Naruto. With Itachi and Shisui. Shisui was not faring well against Itachi even though he gained the Mangekyo Sharingan. He has slash marks and burns on his person and Itachi seemed to be fine. Said future clan head. Eyes glowed with fury as he glared at his former best friend. This isn't right. Even though I gained the Mangekyo, I still can't beat him, he said in frustration and had to evade a volley of miniature fireballs that Itachi unleashed and deflected the other with his blade. He left himself wide open and Itachi appeared in front, a surprised Shisui, and delivered a chakra-enhanced kick at his torso and sent him flying into a wall which left a large crater. The master of Shunshin collapsed and coughed up a glob of blood and gave Itachi a hateful look. How can you still be stronger than me even though I gained the true form of the Sharingan? He growled out in anger. Because you failed to expand your horizon. You believe that just because you possess the ultimate form of our clan's bloodline, which you don't, you are invincible. Such foolishness and belief is appalling and leads to arrogance and death. You may have bested the others, but I am on a whole different level. Itachi vanished and appeared behind Shisui with his blade raised. Goodbye Shisui, and may you suffer in hell for your crimes, he said with no remorse, and proceeded to sever Shisui's head from his shoulders until he sensed someone behind him and leapt away from a kunai's slash and skidded back, glaring at the cloaked figure. We've wasted enough time here, Shisui. Let's go, Madara said and got a nod from the man who glared back at Itachi. Enjoy this victory while you can, Itachi, because next time you won't be so lucky. Shisui spat and they warped away. The eldest son of the late Fugaku deactivated his eyes, and that was when a squad of Anbu appeared. Itachi Taicho, what happened here? Asked Neko while Itachi wiped a bead of sweat from his head. We were attacked. Inform the Hokage that need a fire in the Uchiha district to help put out the fires. The survivors were sent to one of the clan's safe houses at the edge of the village. He explained and got a nod from her. Two of the Anbu Shunsen away to inform their leader of the incident, while the others assisted Itachi in trying to keep the flames from spreading outwards by performing some water jutsu. 4 years have passed since Shisui and Madara massacred nearly half of the Uchiha clan. Luckily, most of the civilian Uchiha and police force were able to survive the assault. When word got out in the village how Shisui almost wiped out half of his clan, many were shocked at why he would do such a thing. Due to his father's death at the hands of the traitor, Itachi had to take the position as the clan head and the chief of the police forces. Hiruzen also increased the security around the village, and Shisui was declared an S-class missing nin who was to be killed on sight by the Anbu and Konoha hunter nin. After that event, Naruto still continued his training under his parents as well as got some assistance from Kushina under Himegami's watch, of course, to make sure she didn't try anything. During those years, Himegami became pregnant and she and Ichigo had a daughter and named her Masaki, after Ichigo's mother. Masaki inherited her mother's features but Ichigo's auburn hair and amber eyes. When this event occurred, Naruto was beyond ecstatic in having a younger sibling and would do everything to make sure she was alright, which impressed his parents and friends, especially Himegami. Naruto would sometimes stay the night with his little sister in case she had nightmares and would rock her back to sleep. He would even help his mother whenever Ichigo was on a mission for the Hokage. The ones who were impressed the most were Makoto, Sume, Hana, and even Kurenai and Anko. Whenever they saw Naruto with the little ball of energy and with the way he watched over her, they could already tell that he would make a great father in the future. Takara also helped when it came to little Masaki, as she would always try to steal her from Naruto, which was kind of funny for the grown-ups to see them argue over who would feed her or take her to the park. He also gained a strong friendship with Kasumi, and he would sometimes show her how to counteract dojutsu such as the Sharingan, for example, and would also help Hinata, Tenten, Yakumo, Sakina, and Sakura with their training whenever they weren't in the academy. Also during the years he met his godfather Jiraiya, but that was an event that didn't go well at first due to the fact that he caught the man peeking on Kushina, Anko, Kurenai, Makoto, Sume, and even Himegami when they were relaxing in a hot spring. It almost resulted in Naruto nearly roasting him alive with fire jutsu, and Ichigo went after him with Tensa Zanjetsu when he found out the man peeked on his wife, which was humorous to the Sandame who had asked him not to kill his student for his actions. Reluctantly they did, but Naruto burned his research with a fire jutsu and threatened to burn off his manhood if he ever caught him trying that again, which resulted him getting hugged to death by Anko, Kurenai, Kushina, Makoto, and Sume, with Jiraiya calling Naruto a lucky bastard, which resulted in him once again getting chased around Konoha by a ticked-off Naruto who tried to fry his ass with fire and lightning jutsu. Afterwards, Jiraiya offered to help Naruto by teaching him some jutsu he created and learned, and taught him a little about espionage, which is what he excelled since he had a worldwide spy network, which impressed Naruto that he could keep up with such a network. He also met Rock Lee, who had declared Naruto to be his eternal rival, especially when he saw him easily beat Neji Hyuga, the so-called next rookie of the year in his age group outside the academy, without even trying, and beat someone even he couldn't beat in taijutsu. Naruto would occasionally have spars with Lee that would result in the training grounds in the academy being reduced to craters and destroyed trees and logs. He also showed Lee how to combine his taijutsu using weapons such as tonfa, a bow staff, and even talons, like the ones Ryu used in Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. Also, Himegami also helped Itachi in using the Mangekyo Sharingan properly so that he wouldn't exhaust his chakra, and even had him improve in things like increasing his stamina, speed, and physical form so that he would be able to fight a lot better in close combat and fighting opponents physically stronger than him, and the same went with Kakashi. While the man was an A-class shinobi respected and feared throughout the ninja world, she helped work on getting him to his father's level and managed to find a way for him to use his Sharingan without wasting so much energy. During his time in the Ninja Academy, Naruto had kept his position as the best in the class for the last several years, impressing every teacher in the school at how he was able to easily understand everything, and stated that he was a genius that even surpassed even his father Minato Namikaze and others like Itachi, and even requested that Naruto graduate early, but said Blonde denied the request, stating that even though he was able to understand things a lot more easily than others, he still had much to learn and also wanted to graduate with his classmates. This shocked but impressed most of them due to how humble he was with his skills, since he never flaunts his abilities nor does he show arrogance like some would. Speaking of arrogance, ever since the massacre, Sasuke has become more arrogant than ever, proclaiming that he will be the one who kills Shisui and avenge his fallen clansmen, and even tries to upstage Naruto and prove that he was a true blood and not some pathetic half-breed that was showed mercy from an outcast. But no matter how many times he tried to taunt or call Naruto names, the blonde would just ignore him and walk away, stating he has better things to do than listen to some trash who doesn't even come close to matching his brother or sister in terms of skill, which would piss the boy off since he really didn't have the Sharingan, and both Naruto, Sakina, and Itachi did, and the latter's having fully matured ones at best in the second stages. Naruto gained his through pushing the limits of his eyes like his mother did, but only had the first stage of the Mangekyo Sharingan thanks to her blood and spiritual energy being stronger than any other Uchihas. He also got along well with Shino, Choji, Shikamaru, and Ino once she got the fangirl knocked out of her by Sakura. The only problem was Kiba due to the fact that he kept trying to get Hinata to go out with him, with the girl kindly refusing since she didn't like Kiba that way, and it irked the Inuzuka, and there were times where he tried to make advances on her, but they were mostly stopped by either her female friends or Naruto, who would literally beat the crap out of him for trying to make advances on his little sister. As I said, Hinata will look up to Naruto like he is her older brother, as will Hanabi. One time Hinata had enough and Jayuken's gentle fists him right between the legs, which resulted in him going to the hospital for a few days, and Naruto and his classmates laughed their butts off when she did that. Right now, the soon-to-be genin were in the classroom and each passed their graduation exam, so that you know they're wearing their Shippuden outfits and are 15. Naruto changed over the years due to his training under Himegami, Ichigo, and Kushina, who is making amends for her actions against Naruto for abandoning him. His hairstyle was a mixture of Minato's and Ichigo's when he exits out of the Dongai realm to face Aizen. But it was still a darker yellow color and had black and red streaks in his jaw-length bangs. He wore an open crimson shirt with long wide sleeves with a black muscle shirt under it. He also wore a pair of black Anbu-style pants with a matching color obi around his waist and black Anbu-style sandals, as well as black fingerless gloves on them. On the back of his shirt was a yin-yang symbol in gold, and on the back, under the sleeves of his arms, he wore a pair of black gauntlets with silver edges on them, like the ones Ryu Hayabusa wore. Kasumi also changed over the years. Like her mother, she wore a matching red and black open jacket and pants, wearing a black tank top that stopped to her midriff but wore a fishnet shirt under it and black sandals. She kept her long red hair up into a high ponytail and also wore a black choker around her neck, as well as 2 earrings that had a whirlpool symbol on them. Like her, Sakina also had the toned body of an actual kunoichi. She wore a dark blue strapless shirt with long sleeves that hung off her shoulders and wore a short white vest over it, with a red sash wrapped around her torso, as well as black biker shorts with black sandals, and also wore black fingerless gloves as well as a dark blue choker around her neck, and like Kasumi wore the symbol of her clan on her earrings. Right now they each had passed their exams and were all wearing their forehead protectors either around their arms, foreheads, or waist, and Iruka was congratulating them in getting this far in the academy and wishing them luck in their ninja careers, and announced that Naruto was this generation's Rookie of the Year, with Kasumi and Sakina tying with the Kunoichi of the Year. After graduation, every parent or relative was congratulating their child in graduating and starting their career as ninja for the village. Naruto was currently with Himegami, Ichigo, Masaki, Kakashi, Rin, and Takara. "Congratulations, O Tuto, or should I say Rookie of the Year?" Kakashi replied while ruffling his little brother's hair, much to Naruto's annoyance. "Aniki, stop it." The young blonde swatted his hand away while the copy ninja chuckles. Rin gives Naruto a hug while Takara and Masaki glomp his legs, talking about how their big brother was going to become the best ninja in the whole world, much to his embarrassment and his family's amusement. That was when he was tackled into a hug by Sakura. She wore a sleeveless red shirt with fishnet under it, as well as a pair of dark red fingerless gloves and black biker shorts that stopped above her knees but hugged her figure, which was that of a kunoichi in training. Her hair was a dark pink color and was in a single braid that hung over her right shoulders. "Naruto-kun, we did it. We're finally ninja," she said as her face was full of excitement, while the blonde chuckled and responded with a one-armed hug that made a blush form on her face. "My Kami, he's got muscles on his arms. And his chest," she thought. "We sure did, Sakura-chan. I bet your parents are real proud of you, especially your dad," he replied, and she nodded in excitement. Her father, Nishiki Haruno, was ninja who was highly skilled in archery and genjutsu like Kurenai was. He was so good that he could easily shoot down a fly and pin it to a wall without killing it, and spent his time teaching Sakura how to use a bow and arrow in both close, mid, and long-range combat, and the man had an affinity for wind, lightning, and fire, which made him even deadlier. "Yeah, he's really proud of me and got me my own bow for doing so well. I can't wait to test it out on the missions we're gonna do in the future," she said in an excited tone while Naruto chuckles. "And I can't wait to see you in action with it either." The blonde replied back and noticed that Mizuki was silently walking away from the other parents and appeared to be plotting. Himegami noticed it too, as did Ichigo, and they looked at their son. That to me's planning something stupid. Naruto remarked, as he knew that Mizuki has always had it out for the blonde and always tried to find ways of trying to ridicule Naruto's academics until he was put in his place by Hiruzen, who threatened to deal with the man personally if he kept this up. It was now night time and Mizuki was in the forest grinning like he had won the lottery. The reason for that is because he had managed to steal the forbidden scroll when he killed a Chunin that was guarding the Hokage vault and managed to swipe it after the alarm went off. Finally, I'll no longer be held back by this weak excuse of a village and gain the power Orochimaru-sama promised. That'll make me even stronger than the Hokage," he said gleefully as he hopped off a tree branch. His senses alerted him and he was forced to leap back onto the ground as several kunai were embedded into the tree he was formerly on and looked around frantically. Shit, did the Anbu manage to catch up with me? He thought as he looked around. He was unaware that the area behind him had rippled and swirled, and appearing from the vortex was none other than Naruto, who cocked his fist back and struck the unaware traitor in the jaw so hard that he was sent flying into a tree and hit the ground. Well, would you look at what I found? The most sacred scroll in the village getting stolen by a traitor? Mizuki turned his head, revealing his busted and bleeding lip as well as the blood dripping from his forehead, and saw none other than Naruto, whose Sharingan was active. Said Chunin sneered when he saw the demon brat with the scroll in his hands now, and stood up while spitting some blood out. "You? What are you doing here, brat?" Mizuki growled out. "Hunting you down, of course, though I have to say I was expecting a challenge when searching for you. Your chakra trail was so easy to follow, it was pathetic. How did someone of your lack of skill become a Chunin in the first place? I mean, seriously, my little sister is more skilled in hiding her presence than you are right now." Naruto replied in a mocking tone which pissed the Chunin off due to the fact that a current graduate was mocking him, an elite ninja of the village. "You dare mock me, you little shit? Hand the scroll over and I might consider letting you live." He tried to threaten, but Naruto merely scoffs at the murderous intent he tried to influence onto the blonde. "I have a better solution. Surrender now and I'll consider leaving all of your limbs intact," he suggested as his expression becomes cold and murderous. "If not, then I will simply break your legs, your arms, and lastly your neck before dragging your broken body back to the Hokage, and he has you visit Enko-chan and Ibiki-san for a little fun before prepping you up for your execution." His Sharingan eyes glow red, which unnerved Mizuki, who had a bead of sweat drip down the side of his face, tries to muster up his courage. "I'd rather die," he screamed, pulling out one of his Fuma shuriken and throwing it with deadly accuracy as it descended towards Naruto. Said blonde clenches his fist and his fingers shift from their tan color to pitch black, and Naruto brought his hand up. Mizuki grinned in glee as he assumed that his weapon would tear Naruto's arm apart, only for him to hear it clang and the projectile clangs as it was caught in Naruto's hand. "What, Bebit, how?" a startled Mizuki asked while a smirk appeared on Naruto's face. The blonde crushes the blade in his hand and tosses it away. "Do you honestly think that a weakling like you stands a chance in fighting me? Especially if I possess a fully mature Sharingan? But the worst thing about this situation is that you looked me directly in the eyes, which is something only an idiot would do." Mizuki felt his hand tremble and move upwards, much to his shock, and moved to his neck. He tried to pull his arm away but struggled to do so. "Ji Genjutsu?" Mizuki replied. "Good guess," said a voice behind him, and then cried out in pain as Naruto stabbed him in the back with a kunai. Mizuki saw that the Naruto in front of him shimmered into a bunch of feathers and then fell to his knees as he couldn't feel his legs anymore. My legs. I can't feel them," he stammered out. "I stabbed you in the lower column of your spine where the joints are and severed them with wind-enhanced chakra, therefore destroying your ability to walk, ever." Naruto ripped the kunai out and Mizuki fell face first onto the ground as Naruto walked around him and crouches down. "I was aiming to kill you, but then I would be ruining Enko-chan's chance to have a crack at you before you go on the chopping block. Though I will miss all those times I sent you to the hospital with a broken jaw or cracked ribs," Naruto said in a solemn yet mocking tone. Damn you, demon. Damn you," he growled out while Naruto rolled his eyes, stood up and slams his foot into the man's face, hearing the sound of his nose breaking and Mizuki's muffled screams under his foot. "Shut up, trash." With that, Naruto proceeds to beat the man within an inch of his life, breaking several ribs, both legs, his arms, and even his jaw. Later on, the Anbu arrived at the scene to see Naruto sitting on an unconscious and broken Mizuki's back whistling a happy tune and inspecting a kunai until he saw the Anbu and waved. "Yo, you guys sure took your sweet time getting here," he announced happily while the Anbu sweat dropped when they saw the broken man's form. "Damn, talk about ruthless. Is he still alive?" Lion asked the blonde. Naruto responded by getting off Mizuki and lightly kick him with the back of his heel, getting a moan from the man. "Yes, he's alive, but his career as a ninja is long over with, but then again he will be facing the chopping block, so it really doesn't matter," he answered back as he picked Mizuki up by the collar and tosses him at the Anbu, and the man moans in pain as he is caught. "Thanks for the help, Kurosaki-san," Hawk said as he caught the forbidden scroll that Naruto tossed to him. "No problem, and tell the old monkey he owes me big for this," Naruto answered in a joking manner and then shunpo's home. Next day, Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting at his desk with several jonin who were gonna be senseis for whomever passed the secret tests they were having, and standing beside him was Himegami with her arms folded. So far he had already set up Team 7, 8, and 10, but the only problem was who would be the sensei for Team 6 that consisted of Naruto Kurosaki, Kasumi Namikaze, and Sakina Uchiha. Kakashi was gonna be the sensei for Sasuke Uchiha, Kiba Inuzuka, and Sai. Anko was gonna be the sensei for Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Sakura Haruno, since Kurenai had taken Yakumo as an apprentice, and Asuma would be in charge of the Ino Shikacho generation. Right now he only had a few options for them. Itachi couldn't either since he is the head chief of the Uchiha police force. He only had a few options, and so the man let out a tiring sigh. "All the teams are lined up except for a few. If anyone has any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them," Sarutobi asked the elite ninja of the village. "Anyo Hokage-sama," Kushina spoke up, getting the man's attention. During the past couple of years he kept a discreet eye on Kushina after she made a vow to make amends for what she has done to Naruto, and while the blonde had given her a chance at redemption, he was still cautious around her, which did hurt her a little, but figured it was better than being completely shut off from him. It also took her a while to in the good graces of Kakashi, Rin, and her three students Kurenai, Anko, and Yugao, but like Naruto, they also decided to give her another chance. When Kasumi found out about what she did, the young redhead went off on Kushina, going so far as to call her own mother an idiot in believing that Naruto was reborn as Kyuubi, and that hurt her greatly, but afterwards, told her mother she had a lot of making up to do for Naruto. "Yes, Kushina?" Hiruzen asked one of the strongest kunoichi aside from Tsunade in the village. "I would like to be Team 6's sensei if that is possible," she offered while the man gave her a critical look, searching for any form of deception in eyes, but found nothing except regret, sadness, and a form of hope in where she would be fully forgiven. "On one hand, I could just say no, especially since Himegami-sama would practically kill me, but then again maybe I should give her a chance like Naruto-kun and the others have. I know she's been trying to make amends with the boy and has been doing a good job so far." He tapped his finger on his desk a few times before nodding. "Very well then, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, you will be the sensei of Team 6. He said, which made her expression brighten up. Afterwards the rest of the jonin left, but Hiruzen had Kushina stay for a few seconds. "Listen, Kushina, the true reason I approved of this is because you and Naruto have had a rocky start a couple of years back and you've been trying to redeem yourself. Plus I already know Himegami has trained Naruto personally since she adopted him, and I know from experience just how powerful that woman is, and you do too," he said in a humorous manner while Kushina looked down in embarrassment and blushed a little from the ass-kicking the Uchiha gave her. She still felt the fathom pain of when she punched her through several walls and hit her hard enough to break nearly most of her ribs and almost keel over and throw up her insides, and rubbed her stomach as an emphasis. "And I thought Tsunade Oba-chan hits hard," she muttered while the man lightly chuckled before getting serious once again. "Joking aside, Kushina, if Naruto is willing to give you clean slate once you've proven yourself to him, then so am I, but I warn you, don't screw this up," he warned the redhead, who nodded. "I won't, Hokage-sama," she answers back with a bow before vanishing in a whirlpool shunshin. "Do you think I did the right thing, Himegami-sama?" Sarutobi asked, and said female Uchiha exits out of the shadows of the office. "Honestly, I still have my doubts, but I'm not gonna crucify the girl yet." That was when a grim expression formed on her face. Though I did discover something interesting on Kushina. Apparently she had some type of seal on the back of her neck that altered her personality. It looked similar to Tihao's Juan seals I saw on those rude Anbu that were under the control of that warhawk. She states before Hiruzen's eyes widened and then narrowed dangerously. Danzo. He snarled the name out and realized that fool was responsible for Naruto's hectic life. If that bastard wasn't already dead, I'd find a way to bring him back to life and kill him myself. I should have known Kushina wasn't being herself that day. Hell, I never took Kushina as the type to abandon her family. That son of a bitch played us all. With that, the man slammed his fist on the table. Maybe so, but now he's a dead fool spending the rest of eternity in hell, where I'm pretty sure he's getting well acquainted with the real demons. Well, if you don't mind, I'll be heading back to my Masumi, and feel free to drop by, old monkey. C said with a grin on her face before vanishing in a swirl of fire while Hiruzen mumbled. Well, excuse me for not being blessed with eternal youth, senpai. He muttered before pulling out his ICHA book. Shinobi Academy. Naruto was sitting by Kasumi and Sakina reading a book based on the feats of the Rikudo Sennin who fought and defeated the Jubi, the demon ruler of the Makai realm centuries ago, as well as how the man created the shinobi world. Sakina was polishing the ninjutsu her mother gave her as a graduation present, which was the same one Makoto had when she was a genin. Kasumi was swirling her hand over her palm, creating an orb of water in her hand which got bigger until it was the size of a basketball. She then held the water ball in her palm like it was a water balloon and grinned as she set her sights on Kiba, who was sleeping on the desk. She then brought her own other hand behind the water ball and aims it at the back of Kiba's head. Naruto saw this out of the corner of his eyes and his lips curve up into a small smile before Kasumi flicked her finger and shot the balloon at Kiba and hits him dead on in the back of his head, making him jump up and awaken from his slumber and scream in surprise while the rest of the class laughed at him. He growled and turned his gaze at Kasumi, who was pretending to read the same book Naruto was reading, and growled before sitting back down. Bitch, he muttered before yelping out in pain as he was hit across the head by a textbook by Kasumi, who had a tick mark on her head and her brow twitched at the name, and now the Inuzuka was sporting a lump on the side of his head while Naruto chuckled at what happened. Afterwards, Iruka entered the room and informed them of their role as Ninja of the Leaf before introducing the team formations. Team 6 will Naruto Kurosaki. Naruto closed his book and listened intently and inwardly praying to Kami that he wasn't put on a team with Sasuke or Kiba, since all they would do is try to upstage him and disliked with a passion. Kasumi Namikaze, the redhead's expression brightened up. And Sakina Uchiha? He answered. Yes. Sakina jumped out of her seat with her hands in the air, accidentally sending her ninjutsu flying into the air and getting embedded into the ceiling. Sakina froze for a few seconds and looked down to see the other students staring at her before she quickly sat back down with her face matching the color of an apple and sinking into her seat, trying to be invisible. Sorry, she mumbled. Anyway, your sensei will be Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. He answered. Kasumi's eyes widened in wonder while Naruto simply raised an eyebrow. Sakina was still red-faced while Iruka announced the rest of the teams. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Kiba Inuzuka and Sai. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hitaki. Iruka answered, getting a complaint from Kiba while Sasuke just scowls and Sai remains impassive. Team 8 will be Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga, and Sakura Haruno. Your sensei will be Anko Mitarashi. Iruka announced before paling at the name and looking at his students. Dear Kami. Both he and Naruto say at the same time before Sakura and Hinata pale in fear while Shino was raising an eyebrow, curious about who their new sensei was. And finally Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, and Shikamaru Nara. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. That was when each of the senseis appeared in the room, well except for Kakashi. Where's Aniki? Naruto wondered as he looked around before the door opened and entering the room was an irritated Rin dragging a swirly-eyed Kakashi into the room, bound by rope with a large lump on his head. The man's peers sweat drop at this as Rin dropped him on the floor before waving happily at Naruto and leaving while said blonde chuckled at this and shook his head in amusement. That was until he was glomped by a happy Anko who buried his face in between her s. Hey Senku-kun. She squealed out in delight while Naruto struggled to escape and push her off. Most of the males were either gawking at the form of expression or getting a bloody nose while being jealous of Naruto for the position he's in, while Sakura, Sakina, and Kasumi were seething at what Anko was doing to their Naruto. Said finally managed to push his head out of her chest with a flustered blush on his face and glaring at a grinning Anko. Anko-chan, let go of me or I gonna tell Saru Oji to ban you from eating dango for a whole month. He warned the purple-haired Kunoichi, whose eyes widened in fear and returned back to her position and rubs the back of her head sheepishly. Damn it, why does he get all the hot chicks? Kiba complained but was ignored. So which one of these maggots is gonna be my playthings? Anko asked out loud, eyeing the students like a predator, and saw Kasumi pointing to Sakura, Hinata, and Shino, and her grin grew sadistic. Happy birthday to me. Sakura and Hinata were gulping while Shino was shivering in fear a little as she rubbed her hands in an evil fashion. Kushina sighs at her former student's antics before setting her gaze at Naruto. This time I will make things right, Naruto-kun, no matter what. She swore.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.